But they decided to something with today. Other than that, there's no.
Good. Yes, guys and gals. Nice wet morning.
Anyway, I don't keep going.
4 more inches, a lot of cracks filled in.
Yeah, just between you and Dodo. Because I talked.
Houston, Texas, they said this morning was getting an inch of rain every 15 minutes.
Houston.
Yeah, but it only lasted, they had 3 inches, it lasted 45 minutes.
Wow, that'd be intense.
Yeah, Texas is having big floods right now.
What they get during Harvey a couple years ago. Remember that
Yeah, they got a ton, didn't
feet of rain that they were getting.
they? Yeah, that's right. Dick looked like he's seen a little sun.
Little bit.
All right, well.
Not here.
I'll let you-
We got snow. You're missing it.
It's actually just sun up right now.
No, it'll be intensifying. It's just-
Where's Steve going?
Arizona.
Oh, nice. What part of Arizona?
What part of Arizona they're asking?
I'm Tucson.
I'm from Phoenix.
Ah,
Yeah, south, almost to the border, almost to the Mexican border. It's about, we're about an hour's drive north of the border, I guess. Good place. I like it here.
Ready?
Uh-huh.
We got 9 o'clock and call meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mochler,
Here.
Packard,
here.
Smith,
Here.
Manning,
Here,
Hammond.
Any conflict of interest declarations? Hearing none. Approval of agenda with adding pictometry contracts under Ina's time slot.
I so move.
second,
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
yes,
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Approved minutes. I
move to approve the minutes.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes,
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Are there any visitors to be heard? Hearing none. We'll turn it over to Drew for the second reading of ordinance 2022-04, amending ordinance number 2013-04, being the 2013 revised zoning regulations for Clay County by amending chapter 4.05.05 districts and purpose.
This is the first part of the campground ordinance. And this is the part just for commercial uses along the county roads. Last time we did advance it on to the second reading.
Wishes of the board or comments?
Yeah, my only comment is the same comment I made last time. And that is that I would like to see it more targeted. You know, I agree that, you know, some commercial uses on county roads should be permitted, but I also feel that a ordinance this broad invites a kind of commercial sprawl that most of the rest of the country is really trying to avoid. And, I've just seen it. I've seen it happen in the course of 10 years, and I would just hate to see it happen here. And I'm not against commercial uses on some county roads, but I am against an ordinance this broad.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
No,
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. First reading of ordinance 2022-05, amending ordinance 2013-04. Being the 2013 revised zoning regulations for Clay County by adding chapter 3.15 campground facilities under Article 3 General District Regulations.
This is the first reading for this one. We added 4.
is this mic on? It's coming through very fuzzy.
Better.
Say something more.
This is the first reading of this ordinance. We had it a couple weeks ago. Changes. The changes were made, and this is just the CUP for campground hotels. That sound better?
Was that any better, Phyllis?
The last sentence, I have no idea what he said.
Can
I
we-
missed,
Lane, that's one of the new mics. I don't know if it could be turned up, but. it's one of the
We
ones
had
that
trouble with that
was
the other day.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
This better?
You got to say more.
There we go. Maybe that'll,
Much better.
first reading of this ordinance. This is the CUP for the actual campgrounds. And we made some changes. Those have been put in, and that's where we're at.
Does anybody have any comments on this ordinance? What do we have for a date, Carrie, for the second reading?
So if we were to, well, we don't need to publish for second reading. So
Okay,
we just have to have 5 days in between. We could do it the first meeting in April.
okay. So we just set the second reading for the 1st of April at 9:05. Take a motion.
I'll make a motion to set the second reading for, what was the date?
April 5th.
April 5th at 9:05.
second,
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond.
Yeah.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
yes,
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. First reading of ordinance 2022-06, amending ordinance number 2013-04, being the 2013 revised zoning regulation for Clay County by adding chapter 3.15, general district regulations, and amending chapter 2.02, definitions and the permitted uses of sections 4.05.03, rural residential district, 4.05.01 natural resource conservation district, and 4.05.02.
This is part 3 of our campground ordinance. This is adding some definitions. It's also adding just some clarification for definitions like under recreational facility, commercial. We added the to include, not limited to. And then the recreational facility, individual personal campsite as a permitted use. Clarify that piece of the zoning ordinance. And again, this is the first reading of that one.
Any questions or comments on this ordinance? We'll take a motion to set the second reading at the same time.
so move,
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
yes,
Packard,
yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Anything else, Drew? Thank you. Oh, that went way too fast.
You guys want some objections?
No. Yeah, that'd be fine. And Andy, are we waiting for Brad with, on the security?
Like about an hour.
So he's gonna be in person? Okay.
Boy, I really thought those ordinances were gonna take longer.
Sam, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, are you ready to present?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I have the letter up here. I'll run down so I can have you sign. it.
Okay, okay.
Have a minute.
Time it, she said a minute, right?
Well, did everybody get to see the vouchers?
Yes.
And I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Everybody get to see the annual report from the library? Okay,
Yeah, I would still love to see a a way to restore that money, just to be fair. I mean, because these people provide a really valuable service to the entire county. And I know a lot of people from outside the city use it. The city puts a fortune into that library. And, you know, we have a really small contribution. And maybe after we've had some time to digest the annual report, we could reconsider that.
okay.
On that, I would feel better if we reconsidered all of those issues that we were unable or have been unable to. I don't feel we can pick one and say this deserves more than the others.
Yeah, I mean, there is some others too that I'd love to see restored, but this one to me is a public service. It normally is part of a regular, budget. It's usually a department. But since the city provides this service for all of our people, and I think the alternative is that at some point, the library and the city are going to say to us, okay, you only get this by contract, or, our residents will have to start paying for it. So it seems to me that this is a small price to pay for the value of the service.
Any other comments? Okay, we're gonna jump to Samantha for the approval of submission for the STOP grant.
So the STOP grant that I'm asking for approval to submit would be in the amount of $39,533.73. The in-kind match is $13,177.91, and that's for the legal assistance time in comparison to ours. So if you guys approve that, I think Carrie sent a copy of the application as well. So if you have any questions for me, otherwise I would ask Travis to sign the letter.
Yeah, and this money is in the budget already. Yeah, the 13,000, the match.
Yeah, I don't believe,
It's
and
not
Carrie,
actual
please
money.
correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe we actually do that money. It's just
Right.
Linda's time, which is
Mhm.
already in her salary. So
Yeah.
it's a
Right.
requirement, and that's what it's called, but we don't know actually
Yeah.
spend it.
The
Yeah, when I
in-kind
first-
match is a portion of her salary, so it's already included in the budget.
Yeah, when I
Great.
first looked at it, I thought. but then
Yeah,
I got
it's
looked a little
weird.
deeper,
and-
I thought, no, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
No,
And
that's
we've been
just what we
doing-
have to put
We've been
on
doing
there,
this
so.
before.
Yeah, we've been doing this for.
Yeah, and I
years.
track it and take the drawdowns each month, so it's nothing that we take from Clay County.
So
Easy.
do we need a formal?
Yep.
Yeah, so I move approval of the stop grant.
And I'd second that.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes.
All right. thank
Pretty easy to
you.
do them when it didn't cost us anything.
Yeah, it's a really good program.
Mhm. Yeah,
All right, thank you all. I'll get this submitted today.
thanks. Right in front of you know,
Right.
you gotta go through the formality.
So is it possible to get a hard copy of the annual report?
Yeah.
Because that would be so helpful throughout the year. Yeah, and it's so hard to read when you're on a computer scrolling constantly back and forth and the letters are too tiny. And if you, yeah,
Yeah, I can do that for you.
that would be
Yeah, I
super.
like that too, because
Okay.
that would be
Mhm.
handy. Last night it was kind of like, or yesterday, I guess, it's kind of tough to follow.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just all that scrolling back and forth. Sort of, you lose a lot.
Carrie, was Larry coming in? Or was he gonna be on Zoom?
I'm not sure.
This is Ina. Do you want to do me now?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
In case you haven't already heard, Laura is going to be leaving us end of June. I haven't gotten the official paperwork, but I would like to start hiring right now. It's like when I hired for Linnea, it took like position, it took over 2 months. And this way she can, Laura can help train whoever we get. The perfect person would be somebody that's certified and has GIS experience, which is the bottom figure, certified with the GIS. But that would only, that's my pipe dream. Which I don't think will happen, but, and until I figure, unless that person has GIS experience, I'm gonna do the GIS until I see who's got the aptitude for it, whether it's a person that I hire or Linnea. So, and that won't be until after Laura's done anyway, not until after the 1st of July, so. And I did prepay a couple of things last year, so I definitely have money in my budget for it, as you can see, so.
So you'd like to get somebody hired and then let them work with Laura for a while?
Yeah.
That makes
and-
sense.
Well, work with all of us so
Right.
that we know. So she knows, oh, I say she, I mean, they know.
Right.
Hopefully, it would be nice to have a guy in the office again. Maybe we can still steal Bill back from Randy. Okay,
So I don't think we don't need.
you don't need to vote,
No.
just,
You've got it in your budget.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted you to be aware. And then did you add the contracts?
We did.
Okay, I missed that, I must have been not listening.
Ina,
Hurry.
thank you.
And then we always do a contract with or a memorandum of understanding is what it's called, between the city and Clay Union,
Payroll.
Clay Grow Water and the BDC. And since we had the flyover earlier, I didn't get the contracts out until actually Friday, but 2 of them already signed them, so I just need Travis's signature on them, and then once the other 2. I think you essentially agreed to it when we agreed to do pictometry with them.
Yep.
So.
So do we have to have a motion to have you sign it?
I think we've already done
We
it.
can.
We can.
Yeah, we
So-
did that months ago.
Okay.
So the ones we have are Clayrol Water and the BDC. So when I did receive the hard drive yesterday, so we will be sending it to Beacon. Probably today or tomorrow. Do you put it on your system line?
No, I use online.
You do, okay, I wasn't sure who uses, well, I know the city, I think, still downloads it into their system.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's all I got.
Anybody have anything else for Ina?
No.
Thank you. I'm gonna have Scott come down and we'll talk about the training room / his office, because it's all gonna be the same discussion. Yes, that's Travis. You got time to come down to the commission room? Okay.
He's not very far away. Sure.
Yeah. No secrets here.
And somebody would just tune in going, they're yelling
Ask us
down
to
there.
have Travis
Okay.
sign.
So we're gonna talk about your office and training room.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
we better get to a microphone. Okay. So what was that, 2 weeks ago, Scott? We were upstairs looking at those, well, we met with court services, and then Scott and I went to the offices and got brainstorming again. It just seems like a lot of work and a lot of money to swap offices and start building in there. He was thinking we should throw the money at the training room. We can, as commissioners, we could move to the training room then, and this would be Scott's office. And it'd be money better spent. It would get the room back in shape for whoever else needs it. I mean, we'd only need it 4 or 5 days at the most during the day. So I just wanted to just get everybody else's thoughts on it.
It's a larger space, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So what would need to be done? It's
It's
pretty,
gonna need to be repainted. Ceiling tiles installed. Lights gone through. And then that one corner where you go in down here from the courthouse there, needs to have some new grid put in and ceiling tile. I've got the old rusty grid out. I got the wall all cleaned up that was deteriorated from the moisture. I got about half the lights done in there. Went through and did about half of them the other day till I ran out of bulbs. So I upgraded them to LEDs in there,
nice.
the type that don't. There's 2 types of LED tubes, one that uses the ballast, one that does not. So I put the ones in that does not use the ballast. So I got about 5 more fixtures to do in there, and I'll have to get a contractor to probably come in and paint it. But I probably paint that one corner I'm working in now so that I can get my ceiling grid back up. It's kind of where I'm going with that over there. Just my thoughts anyway.
It makes sense to me.
You know, I don't know there's some concern about air, because there is no air conditioning. You know, we've tossed around some ideas on that. And one of the ideas was maybe just to wait and see how bad it really gets. Like I said, we talked about not throwing too much money at it, because where are we gonna be in 2 years? You
But
know,
we should probably, I mean, that's gonna be part of the. We just talked about it in the last meeting.
New HVAC.
Yeah,
and
the
HVAC
Ventilation
stuff,
system,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, that, and hopefully we can do that sooner rather than later.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it needs to be done anyway, no matter who, I mean, law enforcement uses it, and that's why it's the training room. And it would be nice if they had ventilation and air conditioning in there.
Mhm.
But
That's
it-
why I moved up front here, because Scott and I actually talked about this too. The, Scott, I think is on track with the idea that making sure that this HVAC upgrade keeps that in mind, but not necessarily does a lot of changes over there, because if we get to vacate, if we build a new building and we vacate, you might remodel up there, you know, so that you make some changes.
Yeah.
Right now, other than air conditioning, or really any air handling in the basement, our systems are working. They're finicky, but they work. That basement room has, you know, no forced air. The air handler doesn't function, but it could be fixed.
I think, I haven't flipped the switch yet. I was gonna flip it the other day, but I was afraid things would start blowing apart in there. And I didn't have my ear protection either, so.
It has no
But
air conditioning.
there's a fan. I mean, there's a fan down there. I don't know how operational it is. I'll have to, you know, flip on and find out, but.
I did talk to the police chief. That's law enforcement center, and that's shared between sheriff and police. Told him about the concerns with Scott needing the space, the commission needing more space for 3 mornings a month. He didn't have any objection to using that. We'd have a calendar for reserving the space for other meetings.
Now, the evidence room is accessed off that room, correct?
Yeah.
Is that secure enough, or do we need to do something? Okay,
I don't like that the door is visible, but it's got 2-factor locking on it. So I could afford it as much as I could be with it being right there, but chances are pretty good that we wouldn't access it during meetings or have to very often. If the door opens, you're gonna smell raw marijuana and things like that, but the evidence room smell like, but that's the way it is. Long term, if we vacate, you know, then the county will expand to that space anyway. If we don't, then we might have to regroup on a lot of things.
yep, Lane,
Just maybe a possibility if you wanted to look at where that hallway is when you come down the stairs to the garage, just that kind of along the bathroom and the evidence room and all that.
Mhm.
Put up a half wall kind of a thing to have some separation between making that a hallway and the rest of the room. That might help keep people from trying to wander out into the garage and all that too.
I hear what Lane say. We've talked about that in the past. It would be fairly simple, especially if Scott's, you know, on board to make sure that happens. We've talked about it. It's always a project that moves back on, or back further time again. But that would be a good thing to have all the way there. Makes that room just that little bit smaller, but that space that's used for passage anyway.
So down in the meeting room itself,
Yeah.
kind of
Just take the west
extended,
6
just,
feet. and
yeah,
have a
just
wall.
past that evidence room door. Mhm.
Yeah, we've always thought where those 2 pillars are on that side.
Sure.
would be a good spot to fill in.
Kind of makes sense. Yep.
Then the traffic through that room wouldn't bother.
Carrie, has Erickson's been here to look or to tell us what we need to get
No.
internet and whatever we need down there?
There is internet in there,
Oh, there is.
but it's not courthouse internet. It's through the safety center service. So in order for Carrie to get onto her systems and all that, Erickson's would have to put an access point for the courthouse.
Okay.
Cell
It's just
phone
cell reception that we can't get in there.
is non-existent.
We
I
have-
try to make a few calls out from
I
there.
think it might be a 3G system.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
there
put up boosters years ago.
there are boosters, those black
There-
Just up on the ceiling.
Oh, that's what those black things are.
Yeah, and
Right,
through,
right, they're probably.
I tried to call out of there the other day and
Can you ask Erickson's, Carrie,
Yeah.
if we can do something, because that is also command central if any natural disaster were to happen in Clay County.
yeah, and there's 3G is going away on December 31st.
We put that in
So,
Many years ago, many
Yeah.
years ago, that, well, that is our EOC, and we actually had a, I don't remember if it was an exercise or an incident, but everybody had to go outside and use their radios and their cell phones. So we put in a booster for our digital radios to get out, and that works, and we put in a cell phone booster, and that works. But
yeah,
it's been so many years, I can assume it's 3G.
yeah, I mean, if that's used as a command post, I mean, it needs 5G and it needs, yeah, it needs all that. I sat in on I was an administrator during a national disaster in Connecticut, and having that space functional was, we couldn't have done it without that. I mean,
Yeah, and now that we have a conference room upstairs, after DCI moved out, a lot of those functions can move upstairs where the systems are better. The only time that we would really truly have that size room full of people for an EOC, it's gonna really make a bad deal. So otherwise, we'd get away with 4 or 5.
Yeah, I just remember when they had that statewide tornado training
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, and yeah, there used to be foam drops and everything else down. in- It's all voice over internet now, so. Discussion the other day, we don't get out of phone licenses. Decide if we ever want to put any more phones.
the other day when I called out from down there, I called out, the person answered that answered, who could not hear me.
mhm.
So that's the experience I've had down there.
Well, it sounds to me like a good idea.
Mhm.
We need the place fixed up anyhow.
Yeah.
Long run.
Yeah, and if there were a real disaster, I mean, you'd probably have the Army in here, and you'd probably have all the utility companies, and, you'd really need a larger space. So,
And to go along with that, because I know Kurt Services was excited they were gonna get a bathroom in their room when they swapped. So the court services room has a spot for a bathroom that I'm comfortable trying to put it back in for them to make it their job easier, so. But that's gonna cost more money, so I just wanted to see what you guys thought. Andy, do you have any idea why that was taken out of there?
No, that's been so many decades before my time, for sure, it has functioned. I can't imagine that it was taken out because they didn't need it. I would guess it was because it wasn't functional. I would guess that the piping was probably bad. And it probably created all kinds of- The sheriff's office used that as file space. And maybe they just needed file space more than the bathroom. Dusty might know, I ask him. He'd be the only one.
I'm working on getting a price for that, and then getting that lab switched out over in Wick. I haven't got any numbers back on that project yet for court services or Wick. When I was up there last week visiting with court services, they were kind of up in the air about how beneficial it would and wouldn't be, and problems that go around along with the bathroom, such as odor control. It's kind of hard to throw an exhaust fan in this building because everything's solid concrete.
I guess I thought they'd be using it more for just the.
Well,
UAs.
yeah, but it's there, so, but they were taught, they didn't even bring up the issue of odor control. They just brought up the issue of, well, do we really have enough space in here for what we have to do? You know, court services employee and then whomever the other individual might be. So they're talking that out among themselves right now. And we're waiting for Kim to get back, talk about it to her. So, but in the interim, I'm still getting a number on it.
Yeah, I guess if they don't think it's gonna work for them, there's no sense spending the money on it.
Right. That's kind of what I thought too. So haven't had a final back from them on what they're thinking.
Okay.
So you're trying to figure out if the piping for that bathroom, how bad it, you don't have any idea how bad it is, do you?
Well, I have no intentions of even hooking up to that old stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I told the guy that looked at it, I said, you know, we're gonna have to concrete board this floor because we're dropping the water lines through here and we're dropping the drain lines through here. Well, technically, you know, I'm not supposed to put in that kind of drain line. I said, well, if you want to bust into that solid concrete wall, go right ahead to get into all that stuff. You know, it's not really that big an issue at the end of the day. I mean, it's gonna drain fine, it's gonna vent fine. So.
Trying to use the old stuff and take it out, it'd be
Yes,
about it.
right. Yeah, he wanted to clean out the galvanized water lines. I go, no, we're not hooking up to that old stuff.
It's pretty impossible.
Yeah,
Right. Well, we
It's
get the
just-
same problem that the nurse's office has,
yeah,
the black water.
yeah. So it's just, that's
Yep.
no, we're gonna avoid all that. We want all new, so. Well, anyway, I got them looking at that and they're working on some numbers now.
Okay.
That's gonna involve, and some of the stuff I can take out, but I thought, well, you're here, you got the water off, we got 12 or 15 feet of 1 inch, inch and a quarter water line down there that's still galvanized, you know, might be a good time to get that out and get it replaced. So there's a few other caveats I got thrown in there. Some cast iron that's exposed down below that should come out while we're doing all of it. So anyway, I'll let you know when I have a number.
Okay, it's gonna interrupt Ina more than anybody.
Well, I told them we're gonna have to schedule this and get it done on the weekend. So it's just the way it's gonna roll. So,
Okay.
yeah, because it gets pretty darn noisy. You start
Mhm.
drilling concrete and stuff. So that's where we're at with that.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
No, the sooner we can get it rid of galvanized, the better, in my opinion, wherever it's at.
That's for sure.
Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
Dick, you're sideways.
Yeah, oh, am I now?
Yeah.
I had to plug in.
Oh, there you go.
Using my phone and I'll see if I can balance this dumb thing.
I thought you
guess
just
I
laid
could-
down.
I thought you were.
You probably like, maybe you liked it better the other way. It rotated on my end, so I thought I was okay.
You look pretty comfortable that way.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting in my camper's kitchen area here, so it's a nice comfy seat and table to work on, but I didn't bring along one of these little stands for my phone. Should have brought more stuff, I guess. Okay.
We're gonna have to wait. We're gonna take a 15-minute recess. We're back in session. We're gonna start with Lane. We've got the first reading of ordinance 2022-07, authorizing the Clay County Board of Commissioners to declare a fire danger emergency and to prohibit open burning within the county.
Okay, brought it up the last time. This would be an update of the older ordinance, 2014 ordinance, to include new terminology from the National Weather Service. I've talked to, Matt Callahan's in the room, but I've talked to Mike Coleman and, Matt Knodel from Irene and Wakanda. And they are in favor of these changes as well for the fire districts. I know that there's some discussion about the legality of it and possible enforcement, but, that's the whole gist of it all. We have any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, I mean, this makes all the sense in the world to me. And the only question is how, and this is not a question on the ordinance because I'm all for it. You know, is there a way to give people notice, the average citizen notice? I mean, it just seems like what will make this ordinance work is public information.
Yes, by them calling, and Ryan Anderson, the communications director, is on, I see on Zoom. But by calling in their controlled burns, communications node is informed when there's a ban in place.
Yeah, and how are people going to know to call? That's,
It's gonna be advertising.
okay. Yeah, that's the big thing. I think to make this work, it's the advertising.
Every township board member has received a hard copy of this ordinance.
Excellent.
And I have not received any calls from any of them in objection to it.
Great.
So.
I've had it in the local papers before.
Yes.
That's even it was on. Not to change the subject here, but I do have one question. Section 2, the regulations. I can't burn in a barrel, but I can burn in a campground.
That's the way it's been forever. I didn't change that.
No,
this time.
I know you did, but it just seems to me like it. I can go out there and light one up in a campground.
The theory, I think, behind it is it's more watched in a campground and you're not.
Yeah, I know the theory behind it, but I just don't necessarily totally agree with that completely. I just was reading that last night. I thought, you know, I think it's more controlled in that burn barrel than it is in that campground sometimes. Seen people walk away from campgrounds where the burn barrel still got it in it. But I mean, I knew you didn't change it. I knew it was like
Right.
before, but
I didn't agree with it when we put it in 14,
yeah,
but I didn't know, I can't remember why it got left, but.
it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean,
Well, I think I know a Clay County campground,
yeah,
you're only allowed to burn in fire pits. And right now, that's the only, the only campground we have. If now that we're passing an ordinance that we're creating other campgrounds that might, need another thing.
and it does say here, it says unless otherwise specifically banned by resolution of the Clay County Board of Commissioners. I mean, but it's like, okay. I mean, it's just something that got me, and I took it back and I thought, that doesn't make a lot of sense. If they're not gonna let them do it in a burn barrel, I think, I know what you're saying, the campground, but also the campground, I'm not putting people down, but they're usually there partying a little bit. They're not got any more control than the person that's there with that's burning in his yard with a barrel that might have a top over it.
Well,
I'm not saying they
I
do.
think that the difference is that there are fire pits and you're only allowed to burn in the fire pits. But my concern, of course, would be, when we allow more campgrounds, I think you're right. I mean, they create those fire pits in such a way that, they're not dangerous. It's like using a burn barrel, right? It's, it's protected, but we're, once we have other campgrounds, we probably do have an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the same
Stuff sparks.
Yeah, I had the same concern Mike has, and I differ with that. I think the campground fire pit is probably infinitely more dangerous than a burn barrel that's got that 1/4-inch screen on the top.
Right.
And like Mike says, folks will start a fire and then wander off into town to go grocery shopping or whatever. I just saw that happen on my way down here to Tucson. Somebody had a fire and it was they just let it burn all winter or all night because it was smoking up the whole campground area. So I think there's kind of a loophole there that we should think about at least.
I don't know if Callahan wants to come up. I have personally no problem with not allowing it in the campgrounds during these times either.
Yeah, I mean,
Because quite honestly, Travis is correct, you know, if you get some of those spots, the ground litter is very close, you know, especially, you know, right next to the woods that aren't raked. But I also just did notice that I forgot to change one thing, so in section 2 regulations B, I forgot to take out the grassland fire danger index reference. So I will correct that prior to the second reading.
So we could just take out C.
Yeah.
Or we leave C in there, so we make sure that they don't go, well, we're a campground, it's different.
I
I
think
mean, you can
take-
put it in there that says does apply.
Right,
Zigzag.
right,
So just take out not.
right.
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess that's how I feel. I mean, I don't think they should be treated any different than the people that burn in a barrel. You know,
Wasn't there something in here too about unattended?
yeah. Can't remember where that's at though. I just.
As far as the campgrounds go, I mean, I think it's for enforcement purposes, when we're in a burn ban, I think there should be no burning completely. Campgrounds, everything.
Right.
There is a lot of ground rubbish in campgrounds that typically isn't cleaned up. And that could pose a big problem. And we're dealing with life safety at that point with a lot of campers. You know, you look at Clay County Park, if that place is full on Halloween weekend and a brush fire starts, I mean, you could be looking at life safety issues. So, I mean, I would be in favor of modifying that as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
think-
see that.
Go ahead.
I see the problem in Clay County Park as being you have a campground and you can end up with embers that will go up in the air. You know, you'll have a log pop and a ember will go up in the air 30 or 40 or 50 feet and then go sideways if there's any wind at all, 100 feet, and get out in that dry grass that's around the outside of the campground. That's where I see the real risk. And so I agree with Matt that we should probably just ban it altogether.
Yeah, I think, now I'm trying to remember, because again, 2014 was a really long time ago. I think we were trying to mirror the state campgrounds maybe at that time, because I don't know that those, like White Crane and Pearson and all that, fall under, because it's state land, I don't know if they fall under those county things over there. So that might have been the reason, but.
If you think of state campgrounds too, they are what, more manicured? i.e.
Yeah.
further area that might be safer for a campfire. I agree. that we-
Probably more patrolled. I don't know about manicured.
Well, there's more area controlled or less fire danger. And I do agree that both should be limited during or eliminated during the high fire area timing.
But, yeah, I will modify number C or number C. There we go. We'll keep it at that.
So was there something in here about unattended? Fires.
They have to be supervised. And again, now that Alexis and Andy are both here, they had concerns about that as well. And again, all of the departments agreed that that's a good thing, along with calling them in. It's just, I'll let Matt, if he wants to speak on it. You know, it's just trying to stop the light and walk away scenarios.
Right, I guess the one I was thinking of is, well, there's two situations. I mean, I'll start a brush fire and it'll get burnt down, but it'll burn for 4 or 5 days. I mean, there's no way I can sit there and watch that for 4 or 5 days. It's not gonna go anywhere, but
Landfill will have a fire burning out there for days and weeks.
it's always on fire there.
Yeah.
Or the other one is, I had a neighbor who they burnt in a hole covered it with dirt,
And it's still small.
and a month later, it caught the grove on fire.
Yeah.
They come out of the ground.
Wow,
We had the same
It was-
thing happen.
I couldn't believe it.
I can't hardly believe that either.
Well, I guess the object to that is, or the lesson is that no matter how careful you are, you can end up with later flare-ups, but
Oh, definitely.
maybe we should be as restricted, like we have it, our proposal here is lets us know that we need to supervise it while it's actively burning and do the best we can to make sure it's out. But even with all those safeguards, you can still have trouble.
Right, and I would hate to, I don't know if there's a way to be able to differentiate between, this was a complete accident that it got away 3 days later, a month later, versus I threw a match and I went to town.
Mhm.
Because both happen. And usually when they throw a match and go to town, it's REA poles that get burnt off.
Here comes council.
So, I mean, I very transparently understand what you guys are saying, but I think one of the things that I'm viewing this is I want to be far more stringent on what we as a county are allowing. Because when those things happen, very transparently, I want that liability on the property owner. They are responsible for this, they did this, whether it was an accident or not, it sure as heck isn't the county. And if we're permitting them to burn, I mean, I get that takes it to a great extreme, and we would then come in if we were named in any action and say, hey, I mean, appropriate mechanisms were taken. We aren't gonna sit here and monitor this. This is on them, and that's why. So I don't really know, but that's why I was like, yeah, I wanna tighten this up. Is it necessary? Could we still argue that this is not, we can't be responsible for what they do on their property and all of those things? It's on them. But that was one of the reasons that I wanted that language modified in that regard. And then the only other thing that I saw and I put in there, and I can't remember, Lane, if you had a thought on it about it, was it's strange to me that we define open burning shall be defined as any outdoor fire, but then down in the definition section, we define open fire, and I don't see that term used anywhere else. Maybe I just
Where-
missed it.
Where,
Under A definitions.
yep.
So I just didn't know if open burning should be defined as an open fire. But then as we're talking about this, maybe outdoor fire is the more appropriate term, because if you
No.
want to ban other.
I will say in the second part of A, that should probably be open burning, shall not include charcoal grills. I would say that's probably a typo from the previous one.
So, all right, because I definitely don't want to define open burning in one section and then they get down to the definition section and define it differently.
Yep.
So I didn't know if open fire was synonymous with outdoor fire.
No, open fire is not necessarily.
Okay,
Open burning is a fire is going to be open no matter what it, even if it's inside. It's going to be a free burn situation, so.
so then do we want to take out open burning above the definition section?
No,
And-
I'll change that sentence from open fire shall not include to open burning shall not include in A.
But then why are we defining open fire, I guess is where I'm coming back to.
Where's?
In the definition, section A is open fire and outdoor fire. Because if we don't utilize that term in any other respect, then,
Okay. So if we call A open burning instead of open fire,
and that's fine, but then I would take it out, then I would take open burning out of that paragraph above and combine, because I don't want us to define open burning twice, if that makes sense. We definitely don't want to get into.
oh, I
two
see,
different
I see
definitions.
what you're saying now.
So if we take that chunk out from above and slap it down in the definition section, I'm comfortable with that, but that was the only other thing that I noticed. And I'm not saying that you guys can't tweak things and modify things to a more practical sense. I get that, but that's just where my mind goes. is,
Okay,
hey,
I
don't want us
wasn't,
on the
in
front.
the email and the comments, I wasn't quite understanding that.
Yeah.
Now I see what you're talking about.
Okay,
Yep. Stay there, because I got one more question for you. Please,
All right.
not to
No,
be,
you're good.
not to be that guy of sit down.
no, you got it. Sometimes you gotta talk that directly with you.
Okay, so I can do that. My question there at the end, because the maximum penalty, blah, 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 legal stuff at the last paragraph. You had said we were using the wrong law. I switched the numbers. Did I have any chance of luckily making it correct without changing a lot of the words?
So yeah, so 34, 35, 12 is that reference, and it does fall in the range and forest fire prevention section of the code, but it's also under public health and safety. And I'll come back to that in a second as to why I still think that's appropriate, because that directly encompasses that civil liability for a fire. A person who sets a fire is provided in 34, 35, 10 is liable for civil damages for all injury and fire suppression and extinguishment costs caused by the fire. For purposes of this section, person includes but is not limited to public utilities, railroads, or private utilities. So then we go back to the 34, 35, 10, and that's, I think, what's gonna make this the, yes, class 1 misdemeanor. So it is a class 1 misdemeanor to set or cause to be set on fire any woods, marsh, prairie, grass, or stubble land, or any other inflammable material at any time of the year without having first in place a natural man-made fire break, and without giving due caution to prevailing and forecasted weather conditions. So we kind of implicitly reference that class 1 misdemeanor, but I don't think we need to. I mean, if that's what's going on there, we can cite them under South Dakota codified law. I prefer to prosecute under that than a county ordinance anyway.
Okay, so the way I have, I'm fairly certain you got the newest version with that law number change in that last paragraph. So the way everything is worded there is good for you. And I hate to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I think that that's fine. I mean, we don't specifically represent, you know, in that statute, it doesn't specifically reference the compensation to firefighters for the time lost from their employment. But I think it talks about kind of that over encompassing civil damages for all injuries, fire suppression, et cetera, is liable for civil damages. So I would classify that as all as civil damages.
Okay, so my new question is where are we going to be okay for a second reading, or do we need to
We gotta
edit
start
this
over.
and start over? So,
There's too many changes.
okay. All right, so I will re-edit this and get it all sent out, probably yet today.
Are we citing for unattended fires though?
Currently,
No, in this one.
yes. Well, it's part of that, yes. And if, like on E, if we, open burning must be directly supervised during actively burning, something along that line, so. I guess I leave it up to the legal people for this stuff.
So the maximum penalty then established with the 30 days imprisonment in the county jail, $500 fine for full is that ordinance provision. And so I think if that's what if it's some violation of not recording those types of things, it would be cited to this ordinance number, whatever it ends up being noted as. That's a county ordinance violation. If we get into the other aspects of that, that other statute, that's a possibility, but the notification requirements and some of those other things we couldn't cite under the class 1 misdemeanor. I think it depends on what law enforcement is responding to and what we're alleging the violation to be.
Well, let's just say that I'm burning and I started it today. And it's just down to hot logs, embers, still smoking tomorrow. But I'm not there. Law enforcement drives by. That's still a fire, correct? And and it's unattended. Am I gonna get cited for that? Even though I'm not causing any damage to any property or anything? I'm gonna have a problem with that because I can't sit there for 4 days and watch it smoldering, and I'm not gonna put it out because it needs to finish burning.
And that's the concern I raised in the email here a while back regarding that, is how long do you have to watch it? 24/7 for the duration? You could say, well, we'll base it on whether or not the fire department responds. You know, well, if a deputy drives by and sees an unattended fire and thinks it's a problem, he's gonna call the fire department.
Well,
I'm looking to you folks on whether or not we're gonna cite for smoldering embers and
I'm having a hard time getting too stringent because I think in the last 7 years that the current one's been in place, we've done a very good job with it.
the intent's been there, yes.
I mean, we've tried hard.
The only thing is all the departments do concur that they would really like people to call
Oh, I 100%.
them to save from the false responses.
there's another concern is whether or not they know they're supposed to call in. They might not read the plain talk, they might not read Facebook.
Yeah, but my God, for 7 years, we've been telling them.
Yeah, and it's a matter of when, you know, it becomes a matter of common knowledge. I don't know any other law that you can violate for not doing something such as notification. I can't think of anything. So what could happen if we went out there and sincerely felt that we couldn't prove the person knew we were supposed to, we'd probably find ourselves in a warning situation. And then that would be documented.
And to me, that's fine, because I'll let Callahan speak, but personally, I think that's fine because it's not gonna take long to spread around the coffee places, knowing that somebody got a warrant. And again, this has all been sent out to the townships, every board member, so hopefully they've been talking about this as well.
Prior to 2014, I had deputies now and then warning people, you're supposed to call in. Well, there was no obligation for them to call in, and you're putting yourself in a situation to be told, get off my property.
It wasn't even part of the last one.
Yeah, and so I don't think that we've ever cited for failing to report a fire. We've cited for burning during a burn ban, but not failing to report a fire. I don't think we've ever had a problem with that, but we have told many people that they need to do it. And I know there are many fires that happen. You can see smoke out there on certain days, and we don't have any of them reported to dispatch, if not just a few of them. So there are people that still burn, even though it's required.
So how do we give you the authority to be able to at least stop and, because they're gonna,
This would give us the authority.
I mean, to at least give the warning.
Heavy-handed.
Yeah, you know, I think you really have an important point there, and I wonder if, you know, thinking about the Smokey Bear campaigns of the 50s and 60s, if putting posters up at all the coffee places. I mean, yeah, it's true. You know, plain talk circulation is not huge. You know, the broadcaster, a lot of people just throw it away. So, you know, posters for a year are kind of a nice way of letting people know in a friendly way, you know, you got to call it in.
And I appreciate Travis says that we share the same concern, and do we want to go to that level? But what I would say is this ordinance, I wouldn't say commands or whatever, but certainly gives us the authority to cite somebody for walking away from their fire or for not reporting that they're going to have a fire. We don't want to do that.
No.
But if that's your intent and we do it, you better be right there with me when somebody complains about it. So we've had that happen in the past where the county commission says you got to go out and cite for this. And when I do, and somebody complains, then they're told, well, you should talk to sheriff about that. So if this is your decision, you need to own the decision.
See, I think there's a lot of, you know, this hasn't been like anything new to anybody that you need to call it in. I mean, I think we've been burning ditches for years, and we've called them in the last 10 years and before I was ever county commissioner. So, I mean, it's out there. People know they need to call it in. I'm not against putting posters up, but people know it. Do they decide to not bother? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But they know it.
Some call in because not so much they have to, because they don't want fire trucks coming to their house. Another is they also know, and we had a pretty good procedure for this. is if we do call fire, fire shows up, we're out there and nobody's there to put the fire out. And so here they wanted to burn the ditch and they come back and it's been put out. They can avoid that by calling it in or staying there. So sometimes it's just being smart.
Well, I've had the sheriff show up when or one of your deputies, not sheriff, I guess, the deputies show up. And I actually had called it in. But somebody had called it in and gave them the wrong address. You know, I called in and said there was a fire there and gave them the wrong address, but we were located fairly close to the I-29. Somebody's going down, doesn't know, as they say in that vicinity. And, you know, that's fine. I'm fine with that, but it's just that, and it was somebody 2 miles over that was actually burning and they hadn't called it in, you know, so I mean.
You could have called it in and then didn't attend it and it got out of control.
That's true too.
And we don't want to dismiss that. So,
Right.
no, that's been reported and we don't go. So.
Right, no, I understand, but I like the procedure that you guys got set up, because when you call in, you got to give your name, where it's at, located, and your phone number.
Yep.
So if they do get a call, they actually, I've never had one call me back, but I mean, that's a great procedure. They could call me and say, hey, is your fire out of control? You know,
But if you're burning a ditch, that's an active fire.
yes,
I mean, that needs to be attended.
yes.
Yeah, as far as
Don't
it,
always do that.
I know.
as far as the active fire goes, I think we can relate. You know, currently we're doing a lot of prescribed burns. We've had a lot of farmers call us. With it being so dry this year, they want us to come and conduct their burns for them. You know, again, we don't stay out there for 48 hours, 72 hours and watch, you know, 2 little spots in a field smolder, you know, but we stay out there until it's contained and it's burned out. Now, could the wind shift? Could we get some anomaly with the weather that's going to blow? Absolutely, we could. And we've done all our weather checks and everything. We could have one flare back up on us, you know, 2 days after we were there. It's 100% possible. But I think as far as active fire, you know, if you're actively burning the situation, you have flames, stuff like that, that has to be attended to.
I agree.
You know, as far as the enforcement, you know, I agree. We have to advertise it, you know, put it out there that this is required now by law, by ordinance, that you have to call this in. It's not optional anymore. Do we get good compliance with it? Yes, we do. Most of the time we do. We have some repeat offenders that do not call it in. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I lit it and then I forgot. And that, you know, and then some that leave, they light it and leave. But you know, if we're looking, you know, I agree with Andy, the sheriff, that, you know, some of this is going to be, you know, educational. Here's your warning, you know, it's noted, and you'll be cited next time, you know, the next time you do it, and don't call it in. As far as whether, you know, you're actively burning and you light a fire and you leave it, you know, if we're on the fence about that, you know, Alexis, you know, as far as the state or the state law, I think part of that covers that you're recklessly burning at that point. You light your fire and you leave, you could almost be cited under the South Dakota codified law at that point. You know, so that would take that out of the county's ordinance, being cited as a county ordinance versus state. But you know, it is, you know, getting folks to call them in is extremely important. And then, you know, as far as, you know, the dispatch center goes, they can call them back if they get calls saying, hey, you know, we got a call that, you know, there's fire in this area. Is that your fire? You know, is everything okay? Yes. Okay. Thank you. We appreciate it. Or they'll just call, you know, during the day, they'll call me and I'll run out and check it. Or, you know, I'm sure they can, you know, could call Lane and he'd run out and check it and just make sure that it's okay. Or there's a deputy in the area, but it's better if we get folks to call it in and they're compliant with that. Instead of then, you know, we haven't gotten any calls. We're now sending a full brush response from a fire department, you know, 4 or 5 trucks, and they get out there and, oh, I'm just burning my field. Sorry. You know, that's time, it's resources, you know, fuel's expensive now, trucks are expensive. You know, it's dangerous because we're responding out there. So, you know, it eliminates those helps to keep those factors down. And you know, it makes it safer for everybody else.
Is there any way of differentiating between an active fire and smoldering coals, if you want to call it that? You know, when people burn a house down that'll burn down in that foundation for days and days as well. And I don't think that's the intent that anybody's trying to stop here anyway.
No, but I don't want somebody to get, I'm not looking to collect fines or put somebody in jail.
Truthfully, I don't see any of the deputies having concern about if you see a pit with logs smoldering in them or a pile that's burned to a pretty good diameter and in the center of it, there's logs. I don't think they're gonna have a concern with that, but
Yeah, I don't know that it's a legal term, but when you said if a deputy pulls up and they feel that it is safe, you know, feelings aren't a legal term at all. You know, they're not gonna call it in for a response.
well, that's officer discretion. We have that with a
Right.
lot of situations.
Yeah.
And
So-
we're happy to exercise that. And this ordinance gives us authority to cite, and we always have discretion.
Education is what people need to know and know what number to call. They should know, but I want to be able to have you guys at least show up and be like, you should have called it in next time. This is the number you call, do it, or we're going to cite you.
We've been encouraging the sheriff's office routine line on our Facebook pages. The fire departments changed their answering machine for after hours. People do not leave a message on the fire department's answering machine, call sheriff's office. So that's the one number we're trying to get to. The dispatch, and they put them on the map.
Yeah, and we even have the sheriff's office number listed as the contact number. So,
I think any amount of enforcement requires a little bit of a leap of faith when it comes to discretion. I mean, and to allow for certain situations where it is a repeat offender. Those are the types of situation, like the adult person being identified. What I don't want to run into is well, yeah, it's my property, but my brother said he was doing this and he called it in. I mean, I think that's where we need to very clearly identify who's going to be responsible for this and how are we saying that. So that was part of my thought. As far as, you know, some of the other things when it comes to the smoldering embers and things, I mean, I don't think that there's going to be violations of South Dakota codified law for that, because there are different, I mean, even at 34, 35, 10, it's a class of misdemeanor, talks about when it's flammable material without first having in place any natural or man-made fire break and without giving due caution to the prevailing and forecasted weather conditions. I mean, there's elements of that offense that we would have to prove that if somebody set up some measures in place, we would consider those things. Even if they got cited initially, then it would be a matter of long-term, you know, going back and making sure that those things are in place. Same thing when we get into some of the reckless burning criminal provisions. You know, there has to be a danger to an individual, foreseeable danger to an individual member of the public for the felony offenses. Then when we get into some of the misdemeanor things there, if they are to control or report a dangerous fire, any person who knows that a fire is endangering life or a substantial amount of property and fails to take reasonable measures to put out or control the fire, if such person can do so without substantial risk. I mean, there's elements to proving those types of things. The question is then whether our county ordinance contemplates that, and do we want to modify that? I mean, if you do, then you know, maybe you want to modify some of that language. The only other thing I would say to that is the more elements you got to prove for that, more cumbersome to a certain extent it does become to enforce that when we do have someone who's constantly. I mean, what's the difference between prohibiting open burning and that reckless burning situation?
I guess in my opinion, the reckless burning would be the person who's not calling it in all the time. That's where if they're consistently not calling it in, if it's the same person, that's a problem. They need to be cited. It's not that hard. Everybody carries a phone now. 20 years ago, when you were 5 miles from home, you're like, yeah, we're here going to burn it. You didn't call it in because you weren't going to run back home. It's 30 seconds out of your pocket now, and you've called it in. But we need to be able to cite those people. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't call it in, even if it didn't get away from them. Somebody's still responding, probably.
I guess in this ordinance too, under E, you know, it says that open burning must be directly supervised by the adult burner who is responsible for the property being burned and whose contact information has been provided to the Clay County Communications Center prior to the start of the burn. So we've defined who should do this, when it should be done. And in E, I think we address some of those issues at least. And really, as far as discretion, it really it's a maximum penalty. So our law enforcement has discretion anywhere up to that limit, in my opinion, that we're just authorizing them to follow this ordinance and have their own discretion on how stringently each situation demands that enforcement be employed.
I'm comfortable with it. We would,
In other words,
might involve proving the elements of this, and that's fine. You mentioned the penalty. That's another matter that you're gonna have to establish a penalty for a violation of this. The clerk of courts will apply, fees, but court costs, but they're gonna wanna know what your fine amount is. It could be up to $500. Doesn't mean that's what it is. That's what it is. And, but if we cite, it would be, unless it's requires a court appearance, we're gonna need to put a dollar amount on that ticket.
yeah.
I'm wondering if that's a bond amount that the court would set, though, kind of like any other cost too. I mean, any speeding offense theoretically has up to the maximum penalty, then they set the standard POA bond amount. If they come in and pay it, then it's.
That's set annually by the courts. And like, for example, we have a county speeding ordinance that's set to mirror the states. The original ordinance in, I think it was 96, we had actually went out and put the fines in there, but then eventually it was set to mirror the states.
So is it become too cumbersome to set levels? Like first offense is $100, second offense is $250, and third one's $500 every time after that? Or is that just a pain?
If you did that, I'd probably like to hear it within a time period. If the first offense was 15 years ago, are we gonna know that? So I would probably say within a year or within the 5 years or something that we could recover in our database. But no, we have that with dog at large issues in Wakanda.
Is there any reason to have it relate to the cost of response?
Well, that would be on top of whatever the fine is. I mean, whatever the fire departments, most fire departments don't charge for it. And that's on them. Correct, Matt?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, currently, the only time that we currently send a bill for a fire response is, I'll give you an example. About 4 years ago, we had that the hog semi rollover just on the other side of the bypass on Cherry Street, Highway 50, and we billed them for the hours and manpower above and beyond a normal accident response because we stayed out there, helped to offload the hogs and stuff like that to assist that company. So they were billed for that. But typically for a typical response, we don't. But in a situation like this, we may choose to bill after a second offense or something like that. We may choose to send a bill, and our billing would be in accordance with what we would be allowed, or with what state wildland would pay for vehicles or personnel. We would keep it in line with that.
And I know it was prior to your time, but probably 9 years ago when that pipeline company set Jerry Wilson's bill on fire. And fields and all that out by, it's probably been 9 years ago. The insurance company might have been electrical, but anyway, their insurance company for the contractor ended up writing a very large check to the Vermillion Fire Department, and Wakanda and Gayville, and everybody else who came out. So there has been precedents set, I guess, within the county that those charges have been filed.
And I think if we're looking at that, not only by reference of the statute, but also, I just think it'd be appropriate, we probably would be looking at the class 1 misdemeanor or higher offenses. Because what we're looking at here is a situation that somebody didn't take appropriate safeguards. I don't think that just encompasses a fair report. This is something that got out of control and that caused
Right.
a response. But I mean, I suppose, I
And
didn't,
this, the last paragraph does address this, but it says that those kinds of costs shall be borne directly by the individual or individuals responsible for setting a fire in violation of the ordinance. Should that be shall, or should that be may be?
it's probably good to say may, because the other thing kind of in conjunction with that is that I think that it's not even as much in this ordinance as a violation of South Dakota codified law. That's really what, there was a prior reference, and our current ordinance has a reference to a statute. And the reason that was changed is I just don't think it's applicable. So it's 718A2 is how it currently reads, and I don't think that statute makes this a civil penalty. I just wanted to look that up again. Because it talks about, so in that statute right now, if we left it the way it is and we don't change it to this other statute, it authorizes you all to enact, amend, and repeal such ordinances and resolutions, and establish penalties, a fine not to exceed a fine established by 22.6.2 sub 2 for each violation, by imprisonment not to exceed 30 days for each violation, or by both fine and imprisonment, and that's the maximum of $500 is that. So it authorizes you to enact these types of penalties and an action for a civil injunctive relief pursuant to 21.8. An injunction is just going to stop an action. It's not going to recover damages and costs. So that's why I didn't think that statute is really getting us to the reference in the ordinance right now to go recover civil damages. But if you want to leave it the way it is, I mean, that's really going to encompass where you have the authority to enact your penalties. But I just wasn't really worried about it because you do have the authority by statute to do what's stated here.
The language to me looks like, in accordance with South Dakota Codified Law 343512, the costs for suppressing any fire, blah, 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 shall be borne directly. So I guess I was thinking that we were using the language of 34-35-12 in here. Is that not the language? Is shall not the language? Because if the language is may, I agree with Dick. But if it looks to me as though we're just reiterating that law.
I will say that is the wording that was in the previous one, and I just changed the law according to the law number according to
Okay.
what Alexis wanted.
So the way the law reads is any person who sets a fire as provided in 343510. So that goes back to that class of
Right.
misdemeanor and corruption.
Yep.
Is liable for civil damages. So it doesn't say shall be responsible, it is liable. So presumably somebody have to initiate some type of action there to recover, is liable for civil damages for all injury, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that still leaves discretion to the fire department if they're going to send out a bill. The statute does. Perhaps the wording of our ordinance then
Well,
is
if
liable.
I
instead of
change
shall be
that
responsible.
to may instead of shall, is that, that's good enough.
That works.
Keep in mind, you have multiple fire departments that
They're-
would be
they're-
responding, so
Yeah, there's 7 departments that have.
to ask Matt what he would do wouldn't necessarily answer all of our questions, because different fire departments might have different opinions about that.
Except that I've spoken with even Pullman this morning, the big 3 that are actually housed in Clay County agree with everything. The intent anyway. Pullman this morning said he's not a lawyer, so he's not gonna come in and talk about the legal sides of things. But, so they're in agreement with everybody calling in, being there to watch all that. So.
I was just referencing to charging for the response.
Oh,
That's what I
gotcha.
meant.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I like the idea of May because it, you know, it provides some discretion based on the facts of the case and individual situations.
So does that answer Andy's question though on what we're gonna charge?
Figure court costs are what, something like 40 some dollars and 50 cents. I don't know why they have an obscure 50 cents. So whatever you would put on top of that. Keeping that in mind. What do you want people to have to pay
$100.
plus court costs? So it'd be
Yeah.
142.50 or something like that.
Is that reasonable? I don't know. Seatbelt violation is 25, so
Yeah,
what's,
I'm not, and maybe this is just a lack of understanding of the difference between what the clerk said and what they don't. I would personally just leave it as these are the maximum options. Like if somebody comes in and contests this, and we have a court trial on this, and maybe we want to talk about them being a repeat offender or something to that effect. I want the court to have the option of sentencing them to something up to the maximum.
What you're saying then is this is a mandatory court appearance.
I
Because we
mean,
have to put a dollar amount on the citation or set them for a mandatory court appearance. If we set them up there and let the court decide, clerk of court's gonna ask us, hey, what's your fine for this? You know, when Wakanda sets a dog at large or a barking dog ordinance there, they have to set a fine to go with that. And then they have a list of fines. Clay County, to my knowledge, only has one citable ordinance that has a fine associated. Actually, there's two. Margaret Street and Meckling has a parking ordinance. Just that one block in Meckling has a parking ordinance, but I don't think any fine got set. But 96-1 is the speeding ordinance, and that has fines.
just looking at the fine and bond schedule for this year to see if that provides any direction in that regard. So Schedule 2 fine and bond, mail-in amounts. Talks about commonly cited violations. The total amount includes the fine plus. So subsection 2, for a violation of an administrative rule or ordinance, $72.50 is the court costs.
oh, wow.
$50 for liquidated costs and $22.50 for surcharges. Petty offenses are judgment amount for $25. Class 2 misdemeanors are $78.50. I mean, I think that's my impression is that the court is the one who's going to set that and that's where we get the standard fine schedule. So the fine amount is just established every year. And if it's not included on the standard routine POA offenses that the court establishes, then there is a mandatory court appearance. So there have been offenses that bounce in and out of that if it's not very often out, but fines and appearances required for a violation of municipal or county ordinances shall be the same as those required for a violation of similar state statute. For other traffic offenses not covered by this ordinance, the fines are the same as the state's schedule. An officer has the authority to require a violator directive for a magistrate judge. So, I mean, we definitely have to encompass $72.50 in court costs if this is going to be contemplated, but I think that, you know, the court's going to look to, is there a similar state statute? And I have to look through this entire 16 pages to see if there's something that's close to this type of offense that they would otherwise state. Most of these minor traffic offenses are gonna have a $54 fine and the additional $78.50 in court costs for a total of $132.50. But there are some that deviate. Drag racing is $204 fine, those types of things. So that's where I think the mandatory court appearance comes in. And if the court adds this to their standard schedule for the year, then the officer can just cite, and it can be a power of attorney offense they can pay on a regular day. If not, it'll be a mandatory court appearance.
I would just recommend that if you act on the ordinance, don't put the fine in the ordinance anyway. That was a mistake that was made in '96. And then have a fine and bond schedule that you would address as necessary. That's what municipalities do. They have a fine and bond schedule like the one Alexis is looking at for the state. And you would just establish what your fine is, which is what your fine plus cost. So you don't have to put it in the ordinance, and you shouldn't. We just need to establish a fine and bond schedule. And I could talk to Alexis and the clerk of courts about that. And then come back and let you set the fine in separate from the ordinance.
Okay.
That'll work.
We would leave actual damages in then?
Yes, with the May.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think the court can give us further direction on that as to whether or not they're gonna require this to be a mandatory court appearance, because if we, if you think of like an overweight trucking civil penalty, there's a standard fine amount depending on the amount of overweight. You come into court, there's a schedule that's established by state statutes. That's how they allow to kind of get around some of that. But I mean, if there's the possibility that there is going to be a civil penalty tied into this criminal action, if you will, and that's just a whole other can of worms. And I like the May language because I think that could keep us out of a mandatory court appearance.
Okay, so how about this? How about I rewrite everything today and maybe tomorrow? And Alexis, if I send it to you and Andy, will you yell at me and make all the necessary changes we need to before we bring it back again?
I'll do my best.
So just take comfort in this. The last time we beat it to death in 14, it started raining again. So that's what I'm hoping for.
You don't have to enforce it.
Yeah, because I mean, it was a long drawn out discussion the last time too. And then it started raining.
5 years later, we wanted way less water.
So, okay. You got your direction, right, Lane? You're good?
I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
You want to move on to records? Or Dick, did you have something?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I just dropped my phone again, so.
You need a cord on it.
Go
Attach it to the wall or something.
Okay, after the last discussion about the records request, I have changed it all over to being my own personal office's requests at this time until further discussion is had. So I've given it to all y'all. And with my fee schedule on it, it is stuff that I have available in my office, so it's black and white prints or electronic. That's what I'm going with, and just need your approval of it all, and I'll get it all publicized on the website, so.
I'll make a motion to approve Lane's recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Henning.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Do you have something for me to sign?
No, as long as it's on a record. that it's-
Okay.
We're good. With that, we, as of last week, all 80 pounds worth of information has been sent to the State Homeland security director for sending on to the feds for the potential purchase of a new drone. The new state director says he thinks it looks exceptional, and I've never seen that much paper used in one shot. So hopefully we'll find out soon whether or not we get it approved.
Okay.
Which brings to the committee things. Both Carrie and I forgot to have it listed in January with all your other committee assignments. Currently, Betty is on pod. Mike is on safety, and Phyllis is on LEPC. Are you still good with those this year?
I'm fine.
Phyllis, you good? Okay, yep, I can see you
Mike.
shaking.
Yes,
Okay, which according to now the new drone policies that are through, I had to set up a drone advisory committee. And currently the membership is Caitlin Dahmer from State's Attorney's Office, Drew Boardmaker from the Vermillion Police Department, and Derek Roning from Communications. Andy and Matt have not sent me a designee yet. We've had one person of interest, Dave Teasy, has asked me about it, but he has not filled out a interest form yet. So I can't enact on it, but in those policies, I need a commissioner. So who's not in?
Oh, my.
Okay, what do you need a commissioner for again?
This will be for the drone advisory committee. Basically, it's making sure we don't violate anybody's civil rights and those types of things.
Well, that doesn't sound like any fun.
Okay,
If-
Yeah.
In an all good world, it will be a very boring lunch meeting, so. And it'll be one quarter, and I will likely buy you lunch. Just saying.
sounds like a deal.
Deal.
I can do
You're
can do it.
irresistible. Yeah, I'd certainly be
That's
willing.
okay.
I'd be willing to do it unless somebody else would like to.
I could, but yeah, there again, I don't want to steal somebody else's thunder.
You guys can fight
You're-
over
We're, my feed is locking up a little bit here too, so I'm missing a little of this. communication.
Nice try, Dick. Nice
if you-
try.
If you do, yeah, I would volunteer to do that
Yay.
if you feel I'm a good candidate for that job.
Excellent.
All right, thank you. I don't know if that has to be an official thing by the commission or not.
Yeah.
And hopefully maybe next year, Carrie and I can remember to get it in on January.
So we better make a motion.
So move.
second,
I have a motion and a second to appoint Dick to the drone policy committee, correct? Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes.
Just let me know what I need to do, Lane.
Yep, I'll let you all know, I'm gonna wait to see if we get approval first, because then we'll talk about that at the meeting and all of that to start, so. There, I've spoke way too much today, unless you guys have anything else for me. I know.
Thanks, Lane.
Dennis, we're quick to you. Get you out of here. So the DOT contract,
DOT contract, I guess, as you're all aware, chemical prices are higher, I raised the price of the DOT. It just needs to be signed.
Same as last year outside of the prices.
Yes, yes.
I'll move to have the chairman sign the DOT contract.
Yep. Second.
I have Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes,
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes.
I need Carrie, you to send the email minutes of this meeting to the Paver email.
Sure.
address. The other thing I have is seasonal help. We only had one apply last year. And then last year we started them out at $13 an hour. I was thinking about raising it to 14. I don't know if that's gonna help.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna have a tough time getting somebody without it.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if it's going to be high enough.
Yeah, that's
No.
what I'm saying too.
But we'll try it. That's all I have, unless you have something else.
Nope.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Did you want this or to give it to Carrie?
I can
Your contract, okay.
Did it come with the envelope?
Right here.
Okay. Larry, we can get you out of here in a couple minutes. These are all easy. There's no discussion. Getting back to work. Because yours is gonna take a while and so is that bond. And I'll sign these later.
Oh, okay. We're all good then? I have really anything to discuss, I guess.
Not really. We've got the archaeology contract for the bridge removal. So we just need to sign that or get a motion.
I move approval.
second,
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, on, that was 3 bridges at 11,700 and the state DOT was gonna pay the contract. And at the county share of 18.05%, I was coming up with 2111.85 that is what we would owe. Am I wrong in this?
I'm trying to find the number here.
Yeah, I do. I can remember.
Yeah, they had a different number and I don't have that page up in front of me. I'm working on my iPad, so.
So a total of 11,700?
The 11,700 is what the total contract is for through the state. And then we're supposed to pay, our county share is 18.05%. And in my calculation, our share would be $2,111.85. My calculation is probably wrong, but check me
No,
on that.
it's right.
That's what I got too.
And that's different than what's in the contract. Let me see if I can dial down and find that. Where are we at? South Dakota DOT. Where are those numbers?
I'm not seeing that anywhere.
Yeah, they've got like a $4,000 amount and
I was
that's
thinking it's like 41.
referenced down in the cover letter, bottom from Paula Hunsico. Notice that I have $4,100 in total cost. Clay has 3 bridges to be surveyed. That means it's $3,900 per bridge for a total of $11,700. But
Yeah, I get your same numbers.
okay, well, I would say we should authorize it for that number.
Where are you finding the 4,000 at, Dick?
Oh, that's in, clear at the bottom, the letter from, from Carrie to Paula. And then there's from Paula to, she's answering one from Paula. Rod and Carrie for the 2021 federal bridge removal contracts. We're contracting with Kogel. Kogel will complete the archaeological survey for $4,100. DOT will pay for the survey and then bill the county for their 18.05 match. And, you know, the numbers are, the $4,100 is an erroneous number. And though we can, with the explanation we got from Ms. Huizinga, we the number we should come up with is that 2,100.
Right, because I don't see it on the actual contract, that 4,100.
No, that I think it is up in there.
Well,
Let me-
It looks like the contract says the state will pay the consultant for services provided in a lump sum amount of $3,900 per project for a total of $11,700.
Okay.
And then elsewhere, it tells us that the county's share will be 18.05%, and that
Correct.
18.05% is the number you cited, Dick, the $2,111.85.
Okay,
So that's what we're in for.
right. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as what that total would be. And I thought I saw someplace in here, I don't think they ever did come up with what our total cost share would be, other than referencing that 18.05.
Yeah, and that's in the email that had the erroneous amount per contract. or
Yeah,
Per project.
okay, I think we'd go ahead with it as is then, but
Mhm.
just so everybody knows that this is what the real cost would be to us.
Can you hear me? This is Rod.
Yeah,
Yeah, say that number might be less anyway, because we tore out one of those bridges already. It was a small wooden structure. And did not realize it was on this list when we did it. So I think there's only gonna be two, but Paula said to just go ahead. We'll do this, and at a later date, they'll just delete the one bridge. It was just a mile off of 46 east of University. It was a small wooden one, and we could handle that, and I somehow or another it got on that list. I don't know why, but it could be less than that, because there's probably only gonna be two bridges on there now.
right.
Okay,
Because I believe they have three on there.
correct.
They're, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and the one that we did was 14 east of Irene, 0.2 south of Irene on 466 over Ash Creek. That's
Correct,
the one we already took out, isn't it?
correct. That's the one.
Yeah,
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion then? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
yes,
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes,
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. We have 4 right-of-way applications for Clay Union Electric. And we can do those all in one motion.
yep. I move we approve all 4.
second,
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
yes,
Manning.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes,
Packard,
yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Driveway application for Logue Partnership on 306th Street.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
second,
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
yeah. So there's one number that is kind of crossed out and kind of ambiguous. And if the number is 16, I think it doesn't meet our minimum requirements. But if the number is 18, it does.
Oh, wait,
And I can't
That's
tell
not this
which.
one. That's not this one
Oh,
yet.
that's not Logue Partnership?
No, I think you're looking at Jim Logue's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. No comment then.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Now we have one for Jim Logue.
All right. So that's the one that I have the comment about, because it kind of looks like there's a 16 over an 18 and, you know, I, maybe Rod, you can tell us which it is and whether it's, meets the county standards.
Yeah, didn't I initial that next to it?
No, not in the copy I have.
Okay,
Well,
I should have.
You've got the pink Post-it note on it where you said recommended for approval, Rod.
Right, and he handed that in and I didn't see the 16-inch reference before. And I talked to him and he understands that the minimum is 18-inch. So that's why I crossed out the 16. I thought I initialed next to it.
Okay, so it's actually 18, is that
Yes,
right?
correct.
Okay,
That's
excellent.
that's the minimum.
Okay,
Yeah, right there.
so as long as he agrees that it's 18, I'm good with it.
I noted it on here and initialed it.
Yeah, well, it was on mine. It shows 18
Okay.
for some reason. I'll make the motion to approve it.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
yes.
Packard,
yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Propane quotes.
Move to accept low bid by Butch's.
Second,
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, this
Great.
is a split load between the two shops then, Nate. Hey, Rod.
What was that? I missed it.
This is a split load between the two shops then, 5% at Vermillion and 30%, or are those the amounts that's in each tank now?
No, that was what was in the tank when we filled them.
Gotcha. Okay,
But it's same price for both
Yeah.
shops.
spendy, but we got to do it.
Yeah.
So I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning.
Yes.
Smith,
yes.
Packard,
yes.
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Anything else, Larry or Rod?
I'm good.
There is no meeting next week, correct?
Not as of right now.
Okay. Thanks, Larry. Thank you.
I'll get these to Carrie and she'll get them to you.
All right.
Andy? I think to get Bill out of here, or Brad, we'll get him.
Want to sit here or you need to speak into a mic? Okay. You have Brad's quote.
Yes.
I thought it'd be best if Brad actually came and explained the quote rather than you ask me questions. I ask him and then I come back. For example, the question was brought up last time about going with a wireless camera system to avoid pulling cable. I talked to Brad, he discouraged that, and I thought it'd be better if he tells you why. And then he gave us a new quote that more replaces the system that's in the courthouse now.
Morning. Morning.
Morning.
So I think if all the quotes are passed to you, you should have a plethora of them. You should have 3 of them. So I think the first 2 quotes we did were just replacing what we call the head end equipment or the main recorders, and then putting conversion tools in there to convert your analog cameras into IP cameras. We give you two different sizes. The two different sizes are nothing different between the two. It's just more storage. With more storage, you'll have more video storage total. So instead of 30 days, you'll have 60 days, or whatever those limits are, depending on motion. That's a best guess, is what it is.
Can you bring the mic a little closer?
Yes, sorry. Is this better?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. Do you need me to repeat that?
No, I think you got, hopefully, but it was a little bit soft, so.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. The third quote I gave you was for complete replacement from cameras to server to wires to switches to all the labor. And it actually adds cameras to your facility to cover the outside of your courthouse, jail, and police department. So I have 3 different quotes out there, not really pressuring anybody to go any directions, but that's just the options that I thought I'd give to you guys. There was a question about wireless cameras. Wireless cameras are, for us at Midwest Alarm, a service nightmare. So we try very hard not to sell cameras that are wireless. We do have customers that want wireless cameras, and that's all they're going to buy. So we do sell it to them, but we find ourselves constantly going to their facility or to their house, re-hooking these cameras back up. I would definitely not suggest it for a courthouse or a jail or a police department. Are there any questions about proposals or about different technologies?
I guess I don't at this time.
So the total system is 125,000, correct?
Correct. That would be a total complete replacement of everything you have from analog to IP, which is the newer technology that's been out. When I say newer, it's been out 10 or 15 years. But that would be replacing all the wire. That'd be getting above the jail, crawling through the crawl space, stretching the new wire, putting a big camera.
So if we decided to do this and we get a new jail built, this equipment would still working here. If we wanted to remodel, it would not be an issue. If we wanted to remodel that for other offices over there, for example.
Correct.
Okay.
It would still work for you if you wanted to retain it here. Also, if you, as a backup plan, if you wanted to take it with you, it would work for you as well.
So we could actually take it to the new facility if we want.
Although it kind of, if we're still going to have the courthouse here, we'd probably want to, keep it here.
Yeah,
right.
It's
But that is an option.
Yeah, it is an option. None of this equipment is
okay.
You won't throw it away. You can use it wherever. So you just pull it down and reuse it.
So if the law enforcement center is at a different site, will the sheriff's department or police department be able to access the video footage here from where they're at?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's good too.
Yes. You can do any offsite location and make it. There are some drawbacks and there are some restrictions involved with that with networking. But if you are connected to another site that's physically off this site, you can deploy cameras at that site and bring the video signal back through the network into your centralized recorder. You can also put another recorder out at another site, and the same software that you use here can control those. The plan would be to put this in place. This camera system that I quoted is one of a couple that will work with PLC systems, which are the systems, they're the high voltage systems that move jail doors. High voltage system. And when you get into a newer jail system, there'll be a command room, like a dispatch office that's got touchscreen monitors on it. As someone comes up and presses the button on the door, it will pop a window open up on a monitor. They'll talk to them, speak to them, look at them, watch them, and then they'll be able to touch the screen to open the door. And then they'll be able to touch the screen again to have that reset into its normal state in the background. And typically, if you go in and watch these command centers like that, that's about a half a second process for the person controlling it. So it's ping, 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 and they're on to the next person that's at another door or watching videos. So this system will interact with PLCs. There's some that don't. So I didn't want to get you
off in a direction where it's not gonna work for you. I hate building just in silos. I like to build you a system that kind of works, so.
And I was gonna just remind you, the reason we're having this conversation was, I brought it to your attention that the video recorders that we have are old XP systems with a bad hard drive in one of them. And we were looking at changing out the recorders, and the first quotes I brought you were just simply the recorders, and the options had to do with the length of video, and the questions kind of, and you folks are making an investment in the courthouse and the longevity of the courthouses. Why don't we just get it all brought up to more modern technology, because our current system is an evolution from back when we had VHS recorders and black and white cameras to the most modern stuff and everything in between. And what Brad's current quote is bringing it all up to current technology.
One thing I noticed on the schematic that shows the coverage of the outside cameras, that neither the front door nor the back door of the courthouse are covered by this deal. Is there a reason for that? Are we just planning on abandoning those entrances, or what's the rationale there?
Well, Brad's pulling that up, Dick. I think that those triangles you see are a little more indefinite. You know, they see beyond that. I'll let Brad answer that.
Those symbols are just kind of a placement of the camera and which direction the camera is going to be looking. They will, for the most part, for functionality wise, they're going to see as far as they can see. The detail is just going to be less and less the farther away you get.
Sure.
We will have them on, we will have two cameras covering the front of the court, or excuse me, the front of the courthouse, what I call the south side. And then on the north side, you'll have one off on the northeast corner, kind of looking that direction. And then you'll have one off of the police department corner, kind of looking back into that. There's a lot of nooks and crannies in there, and I was trying to be very conservative with the number of cameras that I put on the facility to cover it and give it 360 degrees of coverage. So
Sure.
and then the inside, we talked about, Sheriff and I talked about maybe on the inside of the south entrance, also maybe having another camera just inside that entrance, because it is kind of a slippery floor on wet days. And we thought maybe that would be good to kind of place a camera in there as well for seeing any accidents that might partake there.
Okay.
But yeah, these cameras will see, you'll see across the street, you'll see, down the road, as long as there's not a tree or a building or some sort of structure in the way.
Sure. My main question was on those front ones, because the front entrance bumps out from the main building line. So the door itself would not perhaps be in view from corner cameras, but the approaches certainly would be. So that would be, that answers my question there. It looks like, and there's a lot of wire there, a lot of Cat5. We're 13,000 feet there. Is that kind of a maximum, or do you really expect we'll use that much?
I kind of expect that we're probably going to use close to that. Just, as we sit here today and I look up, there's no straight lines in here.
Yeah.
Around corners and up and down and around this and that, and then over and back up and then back over at the corner. So I think we're going to be close. I know.
Okay. Well,
How hard is it
just
to camera if we needed to? Just be pulling wire. Okay. And putting the camera up. The server you have, or the server, any one of these three that they obviously get better and better as the price goes up, because you have more storage, you have more CPU power, and you have it's just a better piece of equipment. You'll be able to add another 20 or 30 cameras to the site if you want down the road. I just didn't know if once it got put up and Andy went, well, there's an area here we can't see because there is a tree in the way or whatever. Yep, and we can do, and we get pretty creative with other facilities as well. We can do pole cameras on the parking lots. You can do 360-degree full cameras off the parking lots. You can, we broadcast video miles in some circumstances to get a camera out, at a landfill somewhere.
and then bounce it back in through the city through one of your water towers.
Okay.
So we can do quite a bit with it. It's not just, I mean, this could be a whole county solution as opposed to. recycling.
Does the board want to think about it? Make the decision at the next meeting, or what do you think?
Wait. I mean, it makes sense to me. It's about time we do it. I think in this case, sooner is probably better than later.
I guess my question is this some of that money that we could use that we can't, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking.
Yep. This
You're talking
would
the
be,
COVID money. Yeah.
yeah, this would be COVID money.
Right. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I was thinking we need to make sure on that too. Yes.
Well, we can, since we're under the 10 million, we can use the money for anything.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard that or not.
Yeah.
I have a little trick with that too. Finding out a little bit more about this ARPA money. The easiest and best way for us to do that is to use that 2.7 million for salaries and wages, and then whatever money that we have budgeted, we roll into that capital outlay or capital improvements. So a little roundabout method there, but we'll be able to do that. So
Okay.
So we're good on the money.
yeah.
That's the most important part.
Constantly finding out more about that and the best ways to do it. And that is the best way with the least required documentation and reporting. So
Are you pretty good with this, Andy?
Good with.
With this security system?
Yes, yeah, I think it's, I didn't know if you meant good in terms of do I approve or am I good with managing it, but I didn't know.
Will it get you what you need?
Yes,
Need,
yes.
that's what I'm getting at.
This is considerably considerable improvement over what we have. Speaking with Brad, he's gonna fix a lot of blind spots we have, for example, the front of the courthouse. Some of our hallway situations where we can only see one direction down the hallway because of the camera placement, and that's because of where they could pull the cables. It all centers around the elevator shaft. He's gonna go a different direction with that. The more modern DVR is important to us. It's the old stuff we have now is multiple operating systems away from what it was designed for. You know, we're using Windows 11 in some computers, and this is running it XP, so it's hard to use. You have to change your resolution just to open it, and so I would really like to get moving into the current technology.
So maybe I'll make a motion to accept the proposal.
I'll
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? How easily is this updated going forward? I mean, he's talking about using, I mean, you're on Windows 11 and we're using XP for that. This can be
Yes,
upgraded.
it'll take care of you until you and I are both.
That's all we need.
Yeah. And it's important that it's like software upgrades isn't a big deal, but all this stuff we're gonna bury in conduit and in wiring. We just want to make sure we don't have to upgrade that sometime in the next 10 years or less.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. How long before you could start, and how long does construction take?
We'll probably need a month to get the parts and get you into the scheduling. There'd be some pre-planning stuff that I have to talk to Scott about. Because we were just talking this morning about boring the holes from the IT room up on first floor.
Okay.
Down into the crawl space to try to get the wire back over to court services. So there's some work I have to do beforehand, but you're probably looking at a month and a half before we're here all the time bugging it. And then we'll have to schedule it around courts and because we'll be camera drill and stuff. And
Okay.
we'll have to coordinate all that. So
Sounds good.
Did we have Lexi take a look at the terms and conditions yet, or?
No,
We've approved it, but I wonder, just have her take a look just in case, before we sign or something. Would that be smart, or is that even doable at this point?
are you okay with that?
I'd be completely fine with that. If you want to X out whatever you don't like on the back of that, I'm completely fine with that. We're a family-owned company, so we're pretty informal when it comes to purchasing
Okay,
and warranty work.
so if there is any problems, we'll be in touch. I don't think there will be, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Brad.
Absolutely, yep.
And just, Brad mentioned Brad's got a relationship with Scott from when he was at CESDAC. Brad and Midwest Alarm have been pretty well vetted here in Vermillion, doing the Community Connection Center, CESDAC, Trinity Church, there's others, so.
Sure.
Good.
We'll treat you right, I promise.
Anything else for Brad or Andy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Another fun one. Wake up, Bob. We're getting to it now.
Did we have in the proposal that we've got for the new jail, did we have the security system already in that proposal?
Oh, I would assume so.
I would assume so, but I don't know.
It's not specified.
not
It's not specified. Dick could probably explain that better, but there's certain things that are under the contractor's quote, certain things under the FF&E.
Okay,
That's gonna be under the contractor's quote.
I assumed. it
And that
was,
would go to
but I didn't-
bid, and Brad will bid,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so.
we do PLC work, we do
Okay.
a lot of jails.
okay,
So, and Andy and I have talked a lot about it, part of the problem. Being in South Dakota, there's only one company, that's us, that does jails, so. There'll be a lot of competition from Wisconsin, Florida, Texas. And they'll come in and they'll build you a jail and they'll leave you in jail. And they won't service. So the typical thing is jail gets built by, low bid. 2-3 years later, stuff starts failing, and then you call us, we come in and try to help you out. But a lot of times we can't because it's proprietary equipment. So we have services, we can help you bid spec it if you want local service.
Okay.
okay,
We will do that. So,
good to know. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I see Dick's on there. Has there been a price increase in the last 10 days?
No, we're still holding at the estimate we had. Yep.
Anybody have any thoughts or win the lottery in the last?
Yeah, so I think the main question was, the cost escalation over time and, the 12.5% that, Dick had suggested, and then you would talk maybe about going a little higher. Maybe Dick could tell us his, that 12.5% is your best guess today.
It is. It's not real sophisticated how we got there. I mean, last year it was within the industry over 20%, 21%. There are projections, the AGC, the Association of General Contractors, there's groups like that are, everyone's trying to forecast this, but there might be some consensus that it might be more like 15 this year. But it seems like there's things that are popping up, every few weeks on something that's a new spike in prices. But the logic behind this was it was 15% for this year and then 10% for the following year. And they divided it at 12.5. It's not a sophisticated approach. And what you'll find when you start talking to people on this, you'll get numbers all over them. You'll get ones that range from under 10% to over 20%. And a lot of it depends on which a year ago, we didn't know that roofing and insulation was gonna really spike up like it has, for example. But there's an article in the Wall Street Journal not too long ago that said that steel might be starting to at least, not necessarily level out, but not increase at the rate that it was in the past year. So I think there's a lot of debate over speculating what will happen with inflation. So really, I think the best way to look at it, it's just a guess. It's a guess at what it could be. But if the consumer price index is, 10% or so, I don't think we'd advise going any less than that. Construction tends to be higher than that. And also something else is happening in South Dakota. There is obviously a very big building boom. So the availability of trades are really pretty challenging. And that's due to there's some, real large projects in Sioux Falls that have really, taken a lot of the labor, and there's a lot more planned. There's I'm told over $300 million worth of work that's out there from, just so far this year. The projects that they've been hiring on. So lots of work out there. So that's one of the other challenges too, is labor availability. And with that, prices go up.
This is Steve Waller. Can you tell us the numbers? A lot of us don't have the documentation in front of us.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we plugged in 12.5% average annual inflation. And what we do on that is we take it from the midpoint of construction, and that's 22 months from when we did this on March 1st. That brings us to 12/23, so December of 2023. And that pushes it to a total of roughly 23%, which is almost $6 million. So that's the number we're debating there, Steve. And we also have we've got owner project contingency of 5%, which is $1 million. And that would be that's what we typically have in at this stage. And we've got an owner design contingency of 3%, which would be typical as well. So we kind of broke this out separately on the cost escalation thing, and it's a very big number.
What is the actual project cost?
Okay, actual project cost, if we do 12.5% cost escalation, total project 39 million, of which it would divide out at 30 million for the county and 9 million for the city.
Thank you.
I think there was some discussion at the last meeting that the 12.5 might not be enough. So I think someone threw out 17%. And if we did that, then it starts to, amp up the total on. I can pull up a spreadsheet here and look at that. What are your thoughts on the inflation? Maybe get a discussion going on that, on what we should use for that.
So if we went 17, that puts us at 41 million, correct?
Yeah, let me pull it up quick, but yes, I think it's
What's that?
41.5.
41.5.
So at 39 million, what would the cost for taxpayers be? How would that affect the mill rate? So we're talking 30 years.
So at 39, and I'm not sure what the interest rate is right now.
I think municipal average is what, 2.45%?
It's probably gonna be pretty close to what we had last year. I don't think it's gone up that much.
That was 2.15.
Yes.
I figured it at 2.5.
Yep, I think that's a good number.
That got us to like $98, 100,000, 98.30. Which would be an increase of $26 over what we're currently with the 725,000 that we opt out to house prisoners.
And Travis, is that the full 39 million?
That's the full.
The 30? Okay.
That was the full 39.
So then with if the city, participates in it, drops it
Yeah.
proportionally.
So that's not really an accurate number that I just gave you then. I mean, that was if it was equal across every taxpayer. The city's not gonna do, well, I'm not gonna speak for the city. I don't know how they're gonna pay for theirs, if it's gonna be a sales tax or what they have. So I mean, if you figured the 30 million, then that's gonna be a different number.
Yeah, we have no idea what the city's planning.
No, but I mean,
I sat in on the council meeting yesterday, it was discussed, there were different options were suggested, their sales tax or a separate bond. The consensus was a separate bond would be confusing to the voters to have to vote on two separate bonds. It sounded like they leaned toward the sales tax at this point. That was the consensus. It wasn't a vote.
The number for 30 million is roughly $75 per 100,000.
and that's on 1.455 billion of assessed value? Or what number were you using?
I just took your $98 per 100,000 on 39. Took
Okay.
77% of that.
And that's on 30 years.
Raising it $75.
Well, we'd be raising it over what we're currently doing. We'd be raising it $2.50.
But you're still gonna need the opt-out for a period of time, right? I mean.
Yeah.
So, because I mean.
In short term, yes.
During the cost of building for the next couple of years, it would have to be on top of what we're already doing.
Yep.
So,
Well, we do have some of that other money. Depends on how you want to do it. Depends on how you want to, I mean, it all comes out of the same account, paid by the same people. It's an accounting issue, how you want to do it. Because if we can spend that money, that COVID money to float this in the interim, we can do that. Or we take that money and we put it against the 30 million and knock it down. I don't know. It depends on how people want to do it.
First few years during the current opt-out orders, and you're not paying both.
And Dick, I don't know if you know this answer. Do we start paying on that bond immediately or once it's finished?
Yeah, you pay on it as soon as you issue the bond, and then you gain some
Okay.
interest on it.
You
And
know,
then
you
the
start
question
paying
will be,
interest.
yeah, the question would be how, when you'd lock in on it. We're seeing, groups lock in on interest rates a lot quicker now because of the concern of rates going up. I think that's probably a question more for Tom Grumman, is get his take on it.
Yeah, so if we can use the ARPA money to relieve the burden of the opt-out, that will make for a much smoother transition for taxpayers.
either way, you can either use it either way. Travis is saying it's very true. You can use it as buy down on the total one, or you use it to pay off. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Either way, it's going, but taxpayers might understand it better. Could we throw a number out there of 39 million and that opt-out went out the door? I think that'd be a better way to go myself. I mean, otherwise it gets awful confusing.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that you're spreading the relief over 30 years if you use it against the bond, whereas if you use it against the opt-out, you're giving taxpayers immediate relief during the transition. And you've got to, instead of having sort of a rocky road, you've smoothed things out.
Right.
And I think for taxpayers having that smoothing, particularly for, people who own a lot of land because they farm, it will make it'll make a significant difference in their tax bill.
So then, getting back to that number on taxes, that was on the 30 million, that $98, 100,000. So on 30 million, it's $98, 100,000.
98.
Yep. So it's the $26.
I think if there's anything you can do along the lines of using those funds, if it's possible, it's a good idea as well, because anyone who owns property knows that the value of that property has continued to go up. And so it is incredibly painful that it's not just the opt-out amount, it's an opt-out amount on top of an increase in your property value. Plus than this. So if there is relief in that aspect, it would be good. And then it's a matter of educating the public about those things.
I think taxpayers are still smarting under the, the city taxpayers are smarting because they've got that $26 million bond that just went through for schools. And so we're really going to have to do a good public education program and, speak to as many groups as we can over the next few months. And, really, I mean, we're really going to have to sell this. This is not a shoe-in. And
Well, the only way to swallow it is we're spending the money already. And it's the way we're doing, it's a bill that's never going to end. This at least has an end date.
Yeah.
so the,
So do you want to go back to the 12.5% then?
yeah.
I would sure hate to come in short.
Yeah, me too, because I think, from what I understand from what Andy and Matt have told me, you guys have pretty much cut everything that you could. But if we come in and we're short, and I don't have to spend any money any more than I have to, don't get me
No.
wrong here, but same token, if it can't, where do we go to cut? You know what I mean? That's hard to do.
Well, we also have a contingency in there, which gives us a little bit of room.
Yeah, but with these building costs, $1 million doesn't go very far.
Right, that's the problem.
Just as a reminder on how this works now, so we'd have, the building gets designed, we have the contractor involved helping out with the design of it, getting subcontractor pricing as we go. And then you only pay for what you actually spend. So, if you get a bond approved a certain amount, it's, and some municipalities and counties have taken out a little bit smaller bond, knowing that they may be taking out another bond, even though they got approval from voters to take out more. You pull back on it, and if the cost doesn't escalate, you aren't committed to the bond, knowing that the, future, if you did, say you did a $39 million bond or 30 million, depends on how you do it with the city. And you only spend 37 of it, then maybe do a $2 million bond, in the future, sort of if needed. But still the voter would have approved up to, I think it's important to have up to whatever number you agree upon.
Well, I'm hoping we come in under 41 million, 41.5.
Oh, God,
to be honest
yes.
with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope that when you get all said and done, exactly what you got done saying there, that we can be able to tell the people that, well, we didn't spend the 41.5, we only spent 38.
Yeah, I have to say that 41.5 scares me, and it scares me because I'm not sure that will pass. That looks an awful lot like the last bond. And, I'm just not sure that that's saleable to taxpayers. So I am deeply concerned about going above that 39 million. I'm just not sure it'll pass. I'm really completely convinced that now is the time to do this. And I just want to see it go. I think, it's a psychological difference, right?
How difficult is it to come back There's a lot of feedback here. How difficult is it if we do the 39 and we end up needing more? Come back for a second bond?
That's very difficult in my opinion, because we will have designed it based on, on a targeted amount. That's a challenge. One thing that we're doing, for example, in Watertown, I may have mentioned this before, but we're buying out the precast panels, the steel, roof and insulation. We're buying that out now. It's actually going out to bid right now, just because we want to lock in the price. We'll lock it in and we'll know it now. We're literally going to take possession of a roof. We won't even start construction of the project till this fall. We're buying out the roof now to lock in on the pricing. So there's some strategies like that you could do as well. And in that particular case, they took out a bond, and so we've got the money to do it. So we're buying out, that basically builds the box. So in your case, maybe we, also buy out some of the detention equipment or some of these things, just so you know it. We know it's in the budget right now, so we're buying it out. We're getting it locked in now. And there's forecasts for some of these items to go up considerably as we move forward. So that's another strategy to look at.
Dick, does this 39 million, does that include the architecture fee?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
That's everything.
How much of that ARPA money is there, Carrie, that we're minus this, what we've already done and are going to do?
I mean, we still have about 700 and some thousand of that original 1 million.
Right.
And then there's the 2.7 million.
We haven't spent any of that yet. Of course, we're gonna spend what, 1.5 here for ventilation?
Yeah. So I think we figured we had about 3.4 and we were gonna spend 1.5 of that.
And another 125.
Yeah.
This is what, about 1.8, 1.7? 1.7, right?
Do we make this thing for 40 million?
I don't.
I'm afraid. I mean, what do you do if we pass it for 39 and it comes in at 40?
Then we just start to cut back, take out spaces, reduce the program and get it within budget. I think that's probably, I'm guessing that's what your school district is doing. It's really kind of a choice.
If that's what they're doing, that gets them back to a crowded space that they're dealing with now.
Yep.
You spent 39 million to get to build the same problem you have right now. Other than our jail is outdated. I mean, but smaller spaces is not solving our problem.
Yeah, that's it.
But that would be 14% annual cost escalation to get to the 40 million. Would be 30.7 for the county, 9.2 for the city.
Yeah, about 1.5 plus 1.6. It's about 1.3, 1.8, right? I'm doing that right?
Yeah.
We have about 1.8.
We could do it if we went 40.
Mm-hmm.
If costs escalated that high. I mean,
Yeah. Hopefully, we're gonna come in,
I would love to hit that 38, 39 total cost
Yeah, me
finished.
too. I'm just concerned that you guys have done good diligence. I mean, I got my faith that you and Matt have done the things that you needed to do to take out the things that you did. Say, well, we really can get by without that. I have really faith that you've done that. So using Dick's numbers, it worries me if it instantly, escalates more than we expect. That we ain't gonna be able to leave you with the thing that you want to use for the next. We're doing something here for not just for the next 5 years.
No,
We're doing it next 40 or 50s, whatever. I'll be long gone. But I'm just saying I don't want to have somebody look back and say, God, that was stupid. Now they're in here asking us for more money again. But we can't do that. We absolutely can't do that. So I guess I would go with the 40.
What's the timing on the ARPA funds? Could you-
2024.
2024, could we use those as a little bit of a buffer for the future if it does, we run into more cost escalation than anticipated?
So what's gonna happen with the ARPA money is that we're gonna have to say we're using it for county employee salaries and wages. And then from there, we can hang on to that money, you know, for as long as we want to. As long as we can use that 2.7 million in the time frame, you know, that if allowed. And I think we'll be able to.
And that's the end of 2024.
Right.
Yeah, so December 31st, 2024.
Can you use that toward the debt service then during the period that of the current opt-out?
If we have the money that's been
Laundered.
Oh, no, that's the word that every commissioner at the district meeting used.
replaced. So.
Yeah, that's the word every commissioner
it's-
used.
I just
It's
didn't
all
wanna
about
say-
how you account for it, and we definitely want to account for it the easiest way possible so that we don't have to worry about things like, what is the Davis-Bacon law, or, you know, where you have to follow all those federal guidelines. And the easiest way to do that is going to be to use that money for salaries and wages, and then the money that we save on the salaries and wages put towards this.
So in dollars, how much is our opt-out dollars? How many dollars?
The opt-out
Yeah,
was 725,000.
You have to do that again this year. You only did 1 year.
yeah, I know we did. That's what I'm getting at.
And how close is that to what we're actually spending?
Well, I think a certain amount of that opt-out went to the what was used in 2021, correct? Because you went into reserves in
Yep.
2021, so some of that replenished reserves. And so it wasn't intended the whole 725,000 was going to be paid for the inmates. I think that we're hitting our estimates pretty closely. We've been fortunate, I believe we're staying under, because Union County's been able to take most of our inmates. If you remember, we based that on 20 inmates per day in Yankton County, because Yankton County was kind of a middle of the road in pricing, but we've been putting most of them in Union County. Union County saves us money in transport and in daily rate, but we're turning in bills to the tune of I think it was $30,000 for last month for housing our inmates. And previously it was in the 28,000 range. I remember estimated July was going to be 26 and it was right there. So I think we're right on track with our estimates, but thankfully that was being conservative with that, in that we were planning for not the worst, but something in the middle there. And thankfully we've been coming out a little better, but we're only 3 months into the year and Union County could fill up. We're housing in Brookings County frequently now. And because we just can't find beds.
But the 30,000, that's just housing. That's not
That's just
gas
housing, that's not gas.
or wages.
That's correct.
Or anticipating things like your conflict contract for public defenders to go up, because it's been extremely cumbersome for them to be in touch with their clients, depending on where they're at, what's going on, and those types of things.
Yeah, we're gonna start paying mileage.
Union County has been very valuable to us, and they've been appreciating the relationship, but it does help us in so many ways if we can stay there. Public defender is one of them, because they have clients there too. What I pay to transport, we probably go to Union County 20 trips a month. And we probably go to Sioux Falls for either various transports, whether it be a mental health committal or transporting a person back that was arrested there, or maybe a penitentiary trip. But I might make anywhere from 8 to 10 trips a month to Sioux Falls and 20 or more to Union County, and we still spend more going to Sioux Falls. So if Union County starts getting full of their own inmates and closing their doors to us, we're gonna see that transport cost and road time go up, possibly quadruple. And then with that, the boarding rate, when we board in Brookings, they're at just about $100 a day. I think they're $95 a day in Brookings, but that's been the only bed we've been able to find at times for female inmates. Sioux Falls, we almost never hold there. They generally haven't been taking us. They still have pretty strong COVID restrictions and lack of staffing. Or I don't know what their reasoning is, but they say no to us every time.
Quite a logistics problem though.
Yeah.
Huge. So what you're saying is then that, do you think that we'll get by on $725,000?
I think so.
Okay.
725 was a $100 and some $1,000s more than what we anticipated at
That's
the
good.
at the Yankee County rate. So if you continued that level of the opt-out, I think it would cover us for these couple of years during construction. And possibly you wouldn't need that much if Union County can keep taking us, we won't need $700,000 a year. You needed that to make up that replenish your reserves.
Right.
From 2021.
Yeah, so just kind of doing the math, it looks like we're more like 360,000 a year if we kept on at the 30,000 a month cost.
And I guess I didn't mention that. One of the reasons we've been staying at 30, it could be a lot worse, is because we've made repairs in the jail, kind of loosened our belts a little bit and gotten some of those inmates out. We've been able to change our mission. We do hold inmates in our jail. We don't hold all of our. Right now, I think we have 21 in custody this morning. And some of them are here. They're not all boarded elsewhere because we'll hold them for up to 72 hours here. So people coming in for a weekend sentence don't go to Union County. People that are doing work release stay here. Because we looked at the deficiencies we have, and those aren't really problems in a couple of days. The only problems we have there might be a square footage issue, and since we're not overly full, they're not crowded like they used to be. So we're holding a neighborhood of 5 inmates or so at a time in here. And so we're not boarding 20 a day. We're boarding more like 15.
The only thing is, there are other costs, 360, but that's not including things like travel time and all that too, the wages and stuff. That's not part of that. So it's actually, and I'm just saying it's gonna be higher than that.
And the wages for the travel for the most part are covered with current staff.
Okay,
We're not
so-
paying overtime for that. And
that helps.
it's people we already have. We haven't reduced staffing in the jail when we reduce population because we're reassigning those same people to transport.
Okay, so I guess what I'm thinking, I'm kind of on board with what you said, Travis, with the 40 million. I think that's where we go to and. Okay.
I hope it comes in a little less.
Yeah, I do too, but I mean, I think that's something we gotta put out there.
And for your opt-out, this year, if you do another opt-out for 23, 24, 25, I'd probably suggest a 3-year opt-out, but we'll have better numbers. And we'll get together and we'll talk then at budget time, and when you go to do that and pick a number.
Right.
It's probably more accurate.
Right.
So how much ARPA money are you proposing to put toward the bond issue I mean, is that what you're thinking about?
If we have to, yeah, 1.5 million.
So if we're gonna put ARPA money toward the bond, so you're still thinking 41.5 million?
No, I'm thinking 40 million.
You're thinking 40 million. Well, why not put $1 million of ARPA money toward it and then say 39 million? I mean, I think there's a, in most people's heads, there's a big difference between 39 and 40. And that would be a way to get it.
It's the gas.
Where it might be more politically acceptable.
He's
That's
thinking
the gas pump syndrome. Selling gas at 39.9 and 40.
And what Mike was saying earlier about not building a building that's inadequate, I have concern about building another inadequate building. We already have one, but I have also concerned about not building one at all. So.
Right, I hear what you're saying.
But if we're at 17%, like he was worried, that gets us to the 41.5.
Yeah, and that would be adequate, but would it pass? And if it fails, then we don't build one.
But
I think-
not bonding for enough
Yeah.
and not building what we need.
I think it's gonna be important that you know what that dollar amount is per 100,000, and that's the number people want to hear. And let them know whether it's 41 or 39, let them know what their cost is gonna be, because that's the number they need to know.
That's the big number. I agree. I mean, they're all big numbers, but I mean, that's, to me, it's the biggest one.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, what matters most is that it passes, but there's no point in building a building that doesn't meet our needs.
Bob?
If you go 40 million, you're gonna have to let the city know because we're gonna have to make adjustments on their share.
Right, and Dick said it was 9.2. Our share will go up 200,000. I know. Yeah, we got to let them know.
Yeah, so it looks to me like what we have 1.8 million. That's flexible money from ARPA. We could put $1 million toward the bond issue to bring us down to 39 million, and then take that 9/10 of that $800,000 and use that to soften the opt-out.
But what happens if it comes in at 41.5 because of the cost increase?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true that, I mean, there's a risk either way. To me today, the biggest risk is that it doesn't pass. But in terms of if we wound up $500,000 or $1 million short, I think there are other things that we could do. One is another bond issue, as much as we would hate it, but that would be a very, very small amount of money that we would have to additionally borrow. And it could be done on I mean, we wouldn't have to go to another vote for that money unless somebody objected. In other words, somebody would have to take out a petition to oppose that vote. So I think there's a really good chance for a small amount of money that would be possible to do. I think we would know well in advance that we needed to do that because of the nature of construction. And I really do believe that today our biggest risk is it not passing, and I really want this to pass. I'm worried.
I'm more concerned if we've got to come back and get more money from the taxpayers. They're not
gonna put much trust in me after that.
Well, I mean, we won't have to worry about it because there'll be 5 new people sitting here if we do that. They're gonna be like, you people don't know what you're doing. So anything different will be better. I'm afraid if it comes, I mean, because what you're saying is we'll do it at 39, and if we run short, we'll just hope people can't do math to make it seem like it's 40 million. Or
it's
41.
not like we're pulling 39 out of a hat. This is the number. This is the number that Dick Strasberg is giving us. And I'm uncomfortable saying, no, we need more than what the consultant is telling us we need. I think that's just a lot harder to defend politically than, taking the number that the consultant gave us and saying, okay, this is what we're going to bond.
Dick, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the 12% your best guess?
Yeah, it is. It's a best guess, and it's based on people in the industry are saying it's probably an educated guess. But if someone would have told me last year that we were going to have 21%, I mean, none of us would have believed it.
So we had 21% and hoping it goes to 12.
Yeah. So a thought on that too is, if the difference between 39 and 40 million is what's that? That's about 2.5 or 3%. So then, we just plain have to take that out of some square footages. I mean, it's not like we're trying to get 5 or 10% out if that's what we're dealing with. But that's where you run into real problems. I mean, you can kind of cheapen up the buildings. Instead of an office being 10 by 12, it's 9.5 by 12 or something. So you can pull that out of some areas. The jail, it's very hard to value engineer a jail. They are, you got so many, if you follow all the regulations and you build it right, there's not a lot you can do with it, but there's some smaller tweaks that you can do on it. I think, the issue of it passing or not, something else I'd throw out there, there hasn't been a bond this size passed in the community this size in South Dakota yet. So I mean, this is a steep hill to climb. But Vermillion doesn't always follow the trend of the state. So that's something else to consider in there too. I mean, I think we can, if we need to pull it back $1 million, I gotta believe that we can do that. My bigger concern is that it's not $1 million issue, is it turns out that there's, that we actually get involved in the war and, prices really skyrocket.
Is a compromise of 39.5 acceptable? Betty? Hello?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's so hard to know what, what voters will do. I feel more comfortable.
To
defending the
explain to them
numbers that are
why it is
considered.
necessary. They have said they would back this project. We just need to explain why it is necessary on the cost.
I was just gonna, maybe Dick could elaborate on this better, but it was kind of comes from a conversation with Dick, and that the 12% is on top of what they believe is a very accurate estimate by the contractor,
Yeah,
because they
that's
based
correct.
that on a recent bid that they did. And so, hopefully that the number is accurate and escalation won't be as big of a factor. So there's that to consider. And I think Dick could probably explain that better than, because.
Yeah, I think this is, we're fortunate that Beckenauer had a project that's very similar to this bid just a few weeks ago, a few weeks before I put this estimate together. So these are pretty solid numbers of what it actually costs today to do it. And what we don't know is on that project in terms of the amount that the subcontractors put in for their own fear of inflation. We expect that every subcontractor puts in a certain amount for what they anticipate. So, and we don't want to be, sort of contingency upon contingency. I mean, I can say this, we've never gone into a project and had a cost escalation factor more than 3 or 4% in, 30 plus years in the business. But we're in an unusual time right now. So I guess I look at it in terms of, if we've got $39 million to work with, that's what we make it work at. And it means we have to, push and shove and make it work. My bigger concern isn't that if this is a difference of $1 million. My bigger concern again is if there's something that is very significant that happens that would cause us to really, we wouldn't be fussing over $1 million. It could be, over $5 million or something where it's something where it's like I mentioned, this war or some other factor that could cause it to go a lot. But the Fed is, tamping, they're pushing up interest rates. And that's, so that I think the goal is to curb some of this inflation. And we could argue, is it, too late and not enough and all that kind of stuff, but the Fed is doing something about the interest rate. So I think historically it'd be pretty unlikely this would continue. But as soon as I get done saying that, there's people that would say, well, remember 1973 when we had the same situation. So this is really it's a good, healthy debate because none of us know. But I thought one thought is go with the 39 and if something is going to cause it to go up that much, it's going to affect everybody every which way. So it's not just going to be an isolated thing that people aren't going to know about. People are going to have a lot of issues on their hands if something, if it really pushes up a lot like that. I don't know. Because we want it to pass. I mean, that's the balance right there. I think, Betty, that's where you're honing in on, let's get something that passes here. And that we sure can support that.
I'll make a motion to use the recommendation that Dick's got out there, 39,186.
Million.
Second.
39
I wish.
million. Yeah, no, 39 million.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Hochler.
Yes, motion passes.
So I am plugging in 39,186,000 in the resolution. And Travis will sign that then.
Does that say up to 39 million?
Yes, amount not exceeding.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll send a final spreadsheet that ties out with that as well.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. And then, you know, if we can also just, I don't know, Carrie, if you could do this, circulate the dollars per 100,000 that we are paying now to plug the hole. And I think it would be helpful for us to pull together our arguments as you know, with Andy and then I think we need to work with our citizens committee and do a real information campaign. And just get out there and speak to as many groups as we can. And you know, really sell this project, make it happen. Yep. And so we don't have a lot of time. And I don't think that this is a slam dunk. And so I think we're really going to have to work at this if we want it to happen.
So it's up to 39 or is it
Up to.
up to 39? Okay. So it's not gonna be, is that what you used to get the 98, the 39?
I use the 30.
You use the 30, okay. Which is what you'd have to use, yeah.
Well, that's the count, that's gonna be the county share. I mean, if the city says they don't want to come along, our share goes up.
Correct.
And, you know, I think the other point we can make is that, look, we have zero debt right now. As a county, our debt is zero. And, you know, we don't, as a county, go out there and bond things, you know, right and left. I mean, this is a real need. And the county doesn't sell bonds for just any old reason. We haven't in a long time. And
Yeah, but 80% of your taxpayers are gonna sit there and go, yeah, we've got debt because the school just did it.
right, and that's,
I mean, whether you want to say, well, that's school and this is county, it's the same people we're taxing.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So it's,
Yeah.
but I think what we're working on now is really, you know, trust that the county is making a reasonable decision. And, you know, being able to say, look, we have zero debt right now. We are not an irresponsible county. We don't sell debt unless it's absolutely critical.
anybody have anything else?
I think that was enough.
We're to the end of the agenda.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
A motion is second, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, we're adjourned. Thank you.
for some reason, right at the last half hour, there was a whole lot of feedback on my, you know, coming through. I don't know what might
Yes,
have,
I could hear that. I could
Yeah.
hear feedback coming from the screen and I don't know why that was happening. It's
Was it-
not happening in this room. It's happening out there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can hear you too.
And in some places where it cut out for 5, 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah. We'll see if that happens next time. Otherwise, we'll have to figure something out.
Background noise is coming and you get feedback. It's hard when you're engaged in a conversation to keep muting and unmuting, so